next day, afternoon, late afternoon. And then they return the 10p.
Okay. Okay, so you just pay for the 24 hours you're riding for 10p. Let's just try another sound check with Andre. Andre, talk to me. Are you there?
Hi, Mikey. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad I can hear you. At the moment, we're just kicking off, as you know, with Talkaoke. We don't know where it's going to go. We're talking about travel cards. Have you ever had a travel card or use your bank card as a travel card?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Where are you dialing in from right now?
From the Czech Republic.
From the Czech Republic. Oh, wow. Do they have travel cards in the Czech Republic?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Possibly not. We've got a person over here. Come and join in. Come and get involved in this. Grab a beer. Don't be shy. Looks like there's a persuasion campaign already underway. Have you ever used a travel card? That's the question on the table at the moment. Have you ever used a travel card? Yeah, the Oyster card. Do you trust your bank on it? That's what we're talking about at the moment. There's a little bit of a distrust on it.
Every time I tap my Oyster card,
yeah,
it seems to charge me more than when I use my Apple Pay.
Okay. All right. Is there a disparity?
So when I use my Apple Pay to go to work, it costs me £6.80.
Yeah.
And when I use my Oyster, it costs me £9.
Okay, Oyster £6.80, Apple Pay £6.80, Oyster £9. What is going on there? Come and join in. Yeah. Well, congratulations. Come on, let's hear a bit about this as well quickly. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. Yes. All right. Okay. Okay, let's stick with the travel card. Ask me later. Let's stick with the travel card. We've got a couple of new faces. We haven't actually even done a round of names, so let's just get names in.
Gonzo.
Yeah.
Margot.
Yep.
Elam.
Yep.
Laura.
Pete.
Pete, welcome, and Mikey. At the moment we're talking about travel card. Do you use a travel card, Pete?
No.
No?
No, I cycle.
You cycle, okay. Have you ever been on the public transport system?
Yes.
When's the last time you went on? And did you manage to navigate okay as a cyclist? How is it?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
If you use the bus, you get, like, isn't it free within 30 minutes if you use it or something?
To be honest, I don't know, because I'm a cyclist as well. I've got no idea.
You pay like £1.30, and then if you get another bus within 30 minutes, it's, it comes in.
It's $1.85 now.
Oh,
they raised the price.
Whoa.
Or maybe
I thought it was $1.55.
$1.55. Okay,
I know they have like
confirm it? Do I need to look this up?
I know they had the fare hopper thing where if you like.
How much does the bus fare cost? We don't know. $1.65. Because we've got $1.95, $1.30, $1.85, $1.55. You're saying $1.65. Okay. Anyway, we're talking about public transport right now. Come and join in. Grab a seat, grab a drink. We have got Margot, we've got Ellen, we've got Laura, we've got Peter and Mikey. We'll see you in a bit.
$65 from the 1st of March this year.
Yeah. Let's ask our friend in the Czech Republic. How much does a bus fare cost in the Czech Republic?
The bus fare in Praha is 30 crowns, which is £1.
Okay. How much is the tram journey?
The journey is half an hour.
No, how much does the tram journey cost compared to a bus journey?
Tram is the same price.
Okay, same price. Okay, so there's some more chit chat over here. What are you saying, Peter?
I said if you travel off peak, the trains are capped at
Right.
I don't know, it used to be £4
Yeah.
or something, so you could get as many trains as you want.
Right.
It's capped at.
You've heard rumours about this. Do you ever go on a train or do you just cycle mostly?
cycle was.
Okay, what? Okay, yep.
Don't forget to touch your card on the pink reader, because otherwise you're going to get charged for, going through zone 1 or something like that.
Yeah, I had that. That's actually really interesting because I had an argument with someone saying that when I go from overground to underground and in between there is the pink thing to tap, he said I don't have to tap it. So I didn't, and I paid almost £7, which is for a journey that should cost me £2.50 or £3.
Okay,
and it's
so
because
where's the pink thing that you have to tap?
so basically, to touch the pink, when you touch the pink thing, you are letting the system know your route, and if you don't let the system know your route, then it's gonna think of the most expensive route that you could have taken.
Right.
If you don't go through zone 1, then you have to kind of let them know.
Exactly.
That's what it's about.
I'm just a bit concerned about the relevance for this for our Czech viewer. Is this interesting for you, Andre? Do you have the same kind of system in Prague?
There was an aim to have a travel card, like an Oyster card, but the guy who was in charge of it, he was so corrupted, he destroyed the system.
He destroyed the system.
Yeah, he just he didn't use the funds as he should have. He spent so many millions crowns on it, and it never worked.
So it turned out to be a big waste of money in the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a shame because I thought the people in the Czech capital are a bit more pragmatic.
Oh. Well, I thought there were way more checks and balances, weren't there? Yeah.
When I went to Prague, I think they did you could get a bus pass for the day.
Yeah.
And I think it was €14 or whatever. And I think we ended up getting Ubers because it was cheaper than. It was only €2 for an Uber.
Right. Okay.
And it was €14 for a bus pass for the day.
Okay. Do people get a lot of Ubers in Prague because it's cheaper?
Yeah, we might have just done it wrong, but
you might have done the maths wrong. Welcome to Talkaoke. Come and take us. Come and take a seat. At the moment, we're talking about travel cards. We've got Andre in Prague. We've got Donzo. We've got Margot. We've got Ellen. We've got Laura. We've got Pete. Is it Pete or Peter?
Pete.
Pete.
Peter.
What have you got preference?
Pete.
Pete. Okay, I'll stick with Pete. And who have we got here?
Ian.
Ian. At the moment, we're sort of talking about travel cards. Did you know about the pink reader? No?
Enlighten me.
Who was talking about? You were talking about the pink reader, weren't you?
When you change the transport from overground to underground, sometimes you have the pink reader to tap just to let the system know that you are changing the type of a transport, so it charges you correctly, because you might get overcharged for whatever reason.
If you don't tap the pink reader, you're going to get overcharged. But what about the system? What is the system, and how does the system know?
You can't beat it.
You can't beat the system.
Can't beat the system.
No.
No.
But you can at least level with the system if you tap the pink Oyster cards.
I'm not a conformist like that. I jump over the barrier and run away. Yes.
Really? Okay. I mean, has anyone else ever not paid their transport ticket?
When I was a student and my campus was in South Woodford, sometimes I'd cycle on one way, but then after a whole day of university, I'd be so tired, I would just try to take a train. And sometimes I didn't pay because they didn't check the barriers. But later on, I went out with this guy who's actually a Polish builder. Anyway, but he earned good money, but he always walked through their barriers. And I remember just being so embarrassed.
You mean doing the Brixton Congo, you mean?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's where you kind of get in close to the next person.
I hate when people do that to me. I'm just but I just remember saying to him, I was just so embarrassed, and I'm like, what? And then I had to rethink, what am I embarrassed about?
Okay.
Is it intrinsically a good thing to be paying for the fare?
Are you still embarrassed about it?
I mean, now I think I've chilled out about it, but I think at the time I was like, you've got the money, or if you don't have enough money to use the public transport, don't fucking use it, just cycle then. I was a bit like that.
Okay, Gonzo, you wanted to say something? Oh, we've got
2000
another. Hang on, Gonzo. We've got another online participant.
Welcome.
So we've got. Is it David or is it David? I don't know. Connecting through. But hello, David.
Hello.
Hello. At the moment, we're talking about travel cards and the pink reader. I don't know if you know about that. Have you ever not paid for your ticket?
Did I ever not pay for my ticket?
Yeah.
That
Have you
was
ever
long time ago, back in France, I guess.
in France?
Yeah.
But in the UK, you're clean.
Yeah. I'm a
Okay.
kosher guy.
Is it a different attitude to the system in France as in the UK?
I don't know. No. Pharmacy is very volatile. Pharmacy.
Yeah.
The French people are very volatile. In Paris,
Yeah.
there is a lot of people who are not paying their tickets. There is a different way of going through the barriers without paying for it and stuff like that. So,
Okay, so it happens a lot more.
It's like fashions kind of stuff like that. I don't know what to say. If you got somebody like showing her hand, she wants to speak.
Lots of people have got their hands up, so we're going to bring this back. But welcome to the chat, David. You've got you and Andre there.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, we've got Gonzo. You want to say something?
So yeah, in 2011, that was the only time I didn't pay for the fare, and that was a bendy bus to Lucia, from Lucia, and there was a police raid on the bus. So and I was like slightly hangover, and I was so stressing out and sweating that the police stopped me and strip searched. Like, okay, they didn't strip search me, but they searched me because they suspected that I might carry some substances, and they took the wrong address because they've never so that's the only time I've went without a ticket and got busted.
You got busted.
Oh my God.
Okay, so Gonzo's been busted. We're talking about. Have you ever? Can you just turn down the input button, the knob on the left-hand side a tiny bit? Otherwise, we're going to struggle here. Just so that it's peaking on the scarlet, just so it's peaking to orange.
I always kind of look on in sort of admiration at people who do manage to bump the train or the bus. I'm just not brave enough to do it, really. And you know what? I kind of realized that it's very anxiety inducing. I used to do it quite a bit. I used to, back in the day with the paper travel cards and stuff, I used to just Photoshop it. And I would do it very well. Yeah, I used to Photoshop. Wow. I know, right? I used to do that for a good couple of years until the Oyster cards came in. Wow. So nowadays, it worked every single time.
Did you Photoshop a different day on?
Yeah, I would just Photoshop a different day. I was very good. I'd get down to the pixel. I was really good at doing it. Yeah. So I saved quite a bit of money. So now when I pay, I just feel like, hey, I managed to do this for a number of years, and it feels good to not feel so anxious about it.
Yeah. What's that?
People used to leave their travel cards on top of the barrier, so like other people would just pick them up and use them.
Yeah.
I guess that's why.
We're talking about public transport. Have you ever bumped the train? That's what we're talking about at the moment. Get a taxi. Okay, well, in the younger days, maybe a little bit, yeah.
I'm actually from London Transport Police, and this has been a massive sting, and I've caught all of you. I'm actually an old geezer, and I have an old geezer's pass. And coming out the train, not lucky being old, believe me, don't go there. And coming out the train, somebody looked at my card and said, "You've already paid, haven't you?" Which I thought was a really nice thing to say.
Yeah.
So yes, I have already paid.
So what do you regard the payment as? Is it all the taxes, all the jobs you've been doing? Or just all the
times I've travelled on London Transport.
Okay,
in my 102 years.
Okay, so that's a lot of journeys.
A lot of journeys.
And what is the picture on your card? Because it looks a bit.
It's an old geezer. It's actually me.
Is it?
Yes. You do have to go through London Transport to get it, and they do check your stuff and that, whether your age.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can see it. Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, where are we going to go with this? We're talking about London transport. We're talking about hopping the train, or if you're over a certain age, you don't need to. You just get a free travel pass. Come and join in.
Does anybody went on the Elizabeth line yet?
What's that? Has anyone been on the? Have you been on it?
No, I just heard about it. But
yeah. Okay. Has anyone been on the Elizabeth line? That's what David's saying. Yeah.
I almost went on it, but then it worked out more expensive. I was considering taking it to Heathrow Airport the other day, but it would cost me, with all the changeovers, about £12. But alternative was like £9, so I just went with that. But I wonder whether using Oyster cards could be like some kind of, it could be like Boots points. Can you exchange the amount of rides and the points that you make for something else, like TfL merchandise or free ride on the Emirates or the...
Okay, so something like a
Jubilee.
Nectar card kind of thing.
Sorry, somebody give love to this dog because he's just too cute.
This is the dog that's going to be the inspiration for the every dog has its day format that we're going to be doing.
And there is some serious money from all the tourist money from people buy their Oyster cards. They don't even leave money on it.
So
all these tourists who come like for a week or 2 weeks in London, they don't know that. So basically they just pay the fee and they don't get the money back. So basically Transport for London, TfL is like accumulating a huge amount of money from that.
Millions of pounds in unpaid Oyster rides. Okay, we've got a new face at the table. This is Talkaoke. We've got Ian, we've got Pete, we've got Laura, we've got Ellen, we've got Margot, we've got Gonzo, and Mikey. Tell us your name.
And I'm Daniel.
Daniel, welcome. And online we've got David and Andre. I'm just going to change the view so you can see them. There is a number of different drinks. If you want them, you can select your own. And yeah, at the moment we're talking about Oyster cards. Have you ever hopped the train? Ian gets free transport because he's paid his dues. He's been on so many delayed trains that it comes for free now. Yeah.
Actually, there's a whole category of people called twirlies. Have you ever heard of a twirly?
No.
That's when you get on with your bus pass and it's before 9:30 and they say you're too early.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a new thing as well.
I can't get travel in the mornings, but I do get off peak and
That's
through
a
the
bit strange
evenings.
though, because older people tend to get up earlier anyway, don't
Pardon me?
No, but yeah, they changed that recently.
Categorising the entire elderly population
No,
into
just
one.
some of them. Some of them
do, but I actually work, so it does save me a fortune, I have to say. But I do think that London Transport needs the revenue, and I think that if people complain about the services, they need to think about are they paying for it, and of course they should be nationalised anyway. So there's people making profit out of our trains, usually the French, I believe. No offence meant. And that just can't be. It's like water and things like that. We need transport, and we don't need other people making money and taking money out of the system.
So it's a bit of a diversion. Should the train service be nationalised? I don't know what we've got. Actually, we've got. You're not actually officially said that you're French, and you may not well be of French nationality, but you've got the accent.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, David.
Yeah, I'm French. I was born in Paris and born and bred. And on my dad's side, I do have like the 10 generations. I don't have it on my mom's side, but I do have like 10 generations on my dad's side.
But what about do you think the trains should be public? Should they be owned by private French companies or national French companies? Who owns our trains anyway? Come and join in. Come and have a drink, have a seat. Hang on, sorry, David. I've got customers here. So
that's good.
I've got Ellen, I've got Laura, I've got Pete, I've got Ian, I've got Daniel, and who have I got over here? Paul, and I'm Mikey. And then we started off talking about. Hang on, David. I'm doing my intro now. But we started off talking about travel cards. Have you ever sort of done Ellen used to Photoshop travel cards before they became Oyster cards. Some people have done it. Some people even are so blasé they forget to tap the pink thing when you go from underground to overground. But now we're talking about privatizing it. Should it be a public service? Should we have to pay for it? That's where we are right now.
In France, it's very nationalized. Obviously, there is a massive things. Like, for instance, it changed a little bit recently, but for many years, buses couldn't go through France. You could only take the train because you had to finance the high-speed train.
Right.
So basically, only train was available. You couldn't get any buses like you can get in England. And yeah, so no, it's not heavily nationalized.
Okay, so it's heavily nationalized in France. Okay.
So what does that mean? Like, does it mean that the cost of your tickets are cheaper, or I mean, what does that mean?
I don't think they are cheaper. For now, they got some serious deals.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not very accurate on it, but basically you can travel up to 6 people on one card, something like that. Fine. There is like a amazing deal for family. And there is all the things with like when you're under 26, but I think you can get that in England as well. If you find you travel, or find you got like a 50% of your travel.
Rail card, yeah.
Your rail card.
I want to say something about public transport. Sorry. I want to say something about public transport. I just want to get like an opinion poll here, because I sometimes see young people sitting on trains or whatever with their feet on the opposite seat. Like, I mean, it's comfortable, it's fine. And then yesterday I saw a guy who was it's today on the way to the studio, a guy wearing a suit, just like kind of like slick guy, and he was just sitting with his foot on the thing, and I was just like, do I say something? I mean, does anybody else feel like that kind of anger inside? Do you ever confront people? Because I always want to, but I'm always just too scared.
Is it a bigger issue than privatizing the trains, the feet on the seat? What do people think?
I have confronted someone in the past, actually, but it's not something that I would do these days. When I was younger, I would, but I wouldn't now. It's a shame. I feel like there is a lack of respect for like the public transport, or there's just a lack of respect for the places that we call sort of public spaces. You know, people don't really value them.
But
it's
how
unfortunate.
do you actually confront somebody though? Because it is hard, isn't it?
I just, at the time, I think maybe I was a little bit tipsy as well, so that helped, you know. And I really think it helps when you're older and you confront teenagers. This person was an adult who I confronted, but it's not something I'd do now though.
Okay, so all right. So where do we want to go with it? Oh, go on, Daniel.
I was going to say for myself, the way I've kind of confronted people is kind of indirectly. So I've normally got my kids with me when we're traveling, and they've actually been inspired by someone. So I literally told them to keep their feet off the seat.
Yeah.
And then they see an adult do the same thing. So my son's 10, so he's like, that's the same thing. So I've looked at the guy, looked back at my kids, and then said, have respect for other people that use this service, you know, take your feet off. Would you do it at home? And then look at the other guy, and he said, and then that's when he kind of moves his foot as well. Yeah. And then my son was like, oh no, you're right, Dad, you're right, you know. And so you can do it in different ways without actually fully confronting them.
So it's handy to have kids though, isn't it, as well? Just you can sort of like
or you could be
what's that?
No, I'm just joking.
Okay, so if you've got kids, it's easier to you can almost tell off your kids as a proxy for the person that you actually wanted to tell off. And have you ever told anyone off on the?
I supported somebody who's been racially abused on the train once. So I heard it on the TV. There was an Asian woman who was been racially abused by a white guy. Yeah. And I heard that what you do is you go and sit next to them and you talk to them and take their view away from the other guy and just treat him like he's irrelevant, and they wander off. So that's what I did.
So what? Explain that a little bit more. So what?
Okay, so there's a woman sitting there being racially abused by a guy standing.
Yeah.
So I went and sat next to her and engaged her in conversation. So instead of looking that way, she was looking at me and we were talking. Yeah. And the guy just got fed up.
Oh, so in a way you're giving them another target to talk to, so they can actually more performatively ignore the horrible person.
That's really interesting because it kind of takes their power away. But you know what? Sometimes we're not really taught how to deal with those kind of situations. So it's where did you see that? Was it on the news, or where did you see it?
I saw it on a program that was explaining ways to help people that were being racially abused. And I suppose it's a non-confrontational way, because me going up and hitting the guy in the face will only result in me being beaten up. Yeah. So, and I remembered it, and I felt that, it was one of those things where everybody's kind of looking the other way, and I felt that I should do something, and that's what I did. And
so
it worked.
How did you start off the conversation with the woman? Just say, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, I mean, literally, it was like I'd never met this woman before in my life, but I greeted her as if I'd known her all my life, and was like, well, what are you doing later, and all that sort of thing. Not what you're doing later. I didn't say that to a woman on the train.
Did you get a date?
No, not with a court case so close. But
yeah,
no, I just said, look, you don't have to look over there. You know, not everyone's like that. You engaged in kind of little banter about it. Try to make her laugh. You know, because if you laugh, then you really are devaluing the guy that's being aggressive. You know, so it worked.
I just wanted to add to like, I guess the psychology behind it is like to also not waste your own energy in the future when you meet someone that like, obviously you know that person will not change their mind. It's not about changing their mind. So for you, it's not worth to even engage in a conversation with them, because if instead of like, if you would start talking to the guy and try to explain him that he's wrong, like it wouldn't do anything, because he was like, he had a completely closed mind. It wasn't his goal to understand the situation. He just wanted to abuse someone.
Okay, didn't want to debate, and that's a problem that's what we're finding here. There's not enough people that want to have a debate, but that's why we're set up as well, because we do want to have a debate of some kind.
Yeah, that reminded me of situations when you are confronted with a person who's kind of aggressive and towards you, and they're drunk, obviously. Then you do not engage in any coherent way, but you kind of look away and you start conversation about some completely different topics, or something kind of completely off topic that would kind of bring them off guard. Like they would just go away because they would assume that you're nuts. But that's a strategy that I've heard from a friend who worked at the day center, where they deal quite a lot with aggressive and drunk people.
Okay, so just go through this again, because
so the situation was, for instance, I was at one spot, and then the person came to me and started kind of acting up. I'm a Polish mafia, blah blah blah. Who are you? Blah blah blah. Sorry, and basically I just turned away, looked into the wall, and I was kind of wondering about some imaginary things, and the person just started to kind of disengage.
Talk to them about interior design or something like that. What's going on? Talk to some people about art. Okay, Andre, did you want to say something? I'm just going to come to you in a second, Daniel.
Yeah, I wanted to contribute to the debate about the train fares. The trains in the Czech Republic are owned by the government. They are national, and the train fares are very affordable. So there seems to be a correlation between.
Is that also another example of changing the subject because we're getting too confrontational?
Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, have you ever had to confront somebody that was saying something sort of, derogatory or, verbally abusing somebody? Have you got any tips on that? We've had a couple already.
It happened to me once on the tube that there was some guy who started kicking the person that was sitting next to him and shouting at them. So I stood up and confronted the person. And what happened was that when the train stopped, everybody got off the train, and I stayed. I was left alone with that guy.
How was that?
But somehow he got scared and he got off at the next stop.
Okay, right. So in your case, that kind of worked. Okay, I don't know if other people would feel the same way. Daniel?
So, yes, I was just going to say, so my dad used to be a bus driver. And he had stories every day about what happens on the bus and stuff. So it's one of the reasons why I think we should pay the fares, because of what they have to put up with.
I mean, do they teach bus drivers how to deal with these confrontational, leery passengers?
You know what it is? It's the actual community that they have of bus drivers. So when they meet afterwards and stuff, they talk about how they deal with these situations. So one of the ways my dad deals with it, when he's got an aggressive person on there, regardless of what they're doing, he just switches off the bus. And one of the best things to do, especially like say in the morning, everyone's rushing for work. There could be an incident that's happening on the bus and everyone's looking away like they don't want to get involved. But as soon as he turns off the bus,
everyone's like, well,
and you give it, I mean, you literally give it about 3 minutes and people are looking and they're like, right, I'm going to be late now. It changes. So you've now got a sort of group sort of culture now that are like,
so as soon as there's a it's turned into a collective problem, then there's a collective solution.
And that's it. And they all sort of
Yeah.
turn on that one person.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then that's how they kind of resolve the situation. Most of the time, that person either calms down or they get off the bus and then they can go about the journey.
Okay.
I do have a point to make about like disabled access.
Yeah.
Basically, disabled access versus women with prawns.
Yeah.
So basically, in theory, the disabled person has priority.
Yeah.
Except that basically, if the prawn is already inside, they cannot. The bus driver cannot do anything to dislodge people with prawn. So I find it very offensive, rude to let disabled people wait at the bus station for like 5 buses until they can get it in. There should be some kind of like
prioritizing.
Civility where basically somehow either they close down their prawn and they make the space for disabled people, or basically somehow, I don't know what to say. My point is basically we should take care of the disabled people.
Yeah, are we actually caring enough for all these different groups in society that seem to get bad change on public transport, and everyone seems to be getting into trouble on public. Not everyone, but there seems to be a lot of different groups that are getting into trouble on public transport. We've heard of a few different ways of how to deal with it. You can, if someone's being abused, you can just chat to them as if you know them. If it's you could just start talking about interior design and throw the whole scent off. But I don't know what we do about disabled people not getting priority. We can find out, but we're picking up stuff. If you're a bus driver, you can just stop the bus and just go, right, we're going to wait until things quieten down. We've got a new face at the table. Tell us your name.
Hello, I'm Evie.
Evie, we've got Margot, we've got Gonzo, we've got Daniel, we've got Ian, we've got Pete, and we've got Laura and Ellen. I can't remember who, and we've got Andre and David online. I can't remember who had their hand up first. Ian, thank you.
Yeah. Have you seen these people on the train that start at the beginning of every carriage and say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I don't want to waste your time, but tonight I'll be on the streets, and I wondered, I don't want to bother you, I know you're all busy people." And it's become a kind of art form. It's become the dialogue has become so well tuned that I'll never give them any money. It's terrible. But the spiel is becoming really good, you know.
There's a whole little speech.
It's on every carriage. It's you know, these people are becoming masters of public speaking. They could get jobs as public speakers.
It's Talkaoke host, for
Yes.
example. Yeah. Okay, Ellen.
I have given them money before because I just have, you know, but you do see the same ones, you know. So what was I gonna say on the point of the buggies? I used to think, well, why don't they take the buggies down? Yeah, I used to agree. Perhaps they're prioritizing this. Why don't people care about disabled people getting on the bus? But then also, you know, from the woman's perspective, who's usually the ones pushing the buggy, they usually by themselves, and the buggies are so huge. I would wonder how would they even take it down? You know, they're just one person, and from what I've observed, you know, there's never any communication when it comes to that space. It seems that people don't really communicate.
Okay, so they don't really
because I've even seen when like there's 2 buggies and like the woman's coming on, but she's not saying, "Oh, excuse me, do you mind if you move out of the way?" I've just seen there's a lack of communication there. So I can imagine this lady with her 1 baby. How is she going to take this down? If the buggies are really big these days. So I think
All right. I don't know where's the change going to come from in this. I'm going to go to Gonzo. Then I'm going to come to you, Margot.
Just Ian reminded me of there's one accident on the tube. What's the green line called? District line. There's like I would return from around 10ish, blah blah blah, and there would be guy on a regular basis. He would kind of beg for money. And the same with this kind of really good worked out line. But if you don't give him money, he would jump and step on your feet.
Wow!
As a little revenge, and he once he stepped on my feet, and that was nasty. But the second time I knew him, and I managed to move it away.
At the last
He was
minute.
really upset. He wanted to destroy my foot.
Yeah.
But that was his interesting take on.
Okay. I've got to go.
I'll make a point.
I just want to say on the subject of buggies, I think they're really light now. I mean, like that, because I've seen a few times women are like, well, I would say like, oh, they're struggling down, like from the bus or trying to come on the bus, and they're not really struggling. No, I'm fine. And they're just literally just like, because they are just like so differently constructed now. And also, I think people with children they just get different treatment because like, oh no, but that person is just procreated, so that's good for society, so we need to give him priority. And I just want to put that to question.
Okay. Are we giving too much priority to those who reproduce? Evie?
I mean, it's linked to the bus. Do you, when you're all sitting on the front of the bus, top deck, very exciting. If the family comes on, I like, sometimes I look at it and then I want to sit in the front. I'm like, oh no, it's more exciting for the kids, so I should give up my seat.
So
but sometimes I don't want to because
you give up the front seat for the kids.
Yeah, but it's exciting for me as well. And but then, because then otherwise you feel like a tool if you don't let them sit on the front seat. No?
No?
Oh, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me projecting. I love sitting on the front seat.
Okay, let's have a show of hands. Who would give up their front seat? The front seat of the bus for the this doesn't apply to you because you're a cyclist, and if you gave up that front seat, then you would be in trouble. But everyone else, who would give up the front seat of the bus for some children? Yeah.
I've got 2 kids, and I still wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah. I would let them. Yeah, we go up, and we have to travel up the stairs. We're only going 2 stops, and we have to go all the way upstairs just so they can sit at the front.
Yeah.
That's fine. But if I'm sitting at the front,
Yeah.
and our family gets on.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can come and sit next to me. It's fine, But yeah, just a bit, because other people won't move up for you. If you get off now and then you go down, everyone else has got bags there and all of that sort of stuff. So.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it might work.
it seems like not many people are doing the same thing that you're doing. Maybe that makes you feel better.
My life is very easy. I haven't got children, so like maybe
Yeah.
I just like I feel a bit selfish if I don't. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
The big question in all this is that if you don't sit at the front, how on earth can you pretend to be the driver? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's impossible to be the driver at the back of the bus.
Okay, so we've all got to be able to sit at the front, yeah.
But like on transport, I feel like a lot of people, more people than I thought this week, have been really excited about the Elizabeth line opening.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys already started with that tonight.
We did mention it, but it didn't actually have any traction.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. People have been really keen.
No one's
very
been on it.
quiet.
No one's that bothered about it, I don't think.
Although I haven't been on it, I was excited about it. And I was like, well, this is strange. Why am I excited about this new line? Yes, I can get to Liverpool Street in 10 minutes, but
where?
From Haggerston.
Really?
Yeah, well, I'll change at Whitechapel. I think it's one stop from Whitechapel.
Right,
So
okay. Yeah.
maybe 15 minutes, but I don't know. Yeah, it's strange how people have been excited about it though.
Yeah. I mean, let's have a show of hands. Who's excited about the Elizabeth line? Daniel, okay, tell us about it.
Well, the reason why I was going to say is I've got family that live kind of on the outskirts of London, and they've all been messaging like crazy on Instagram, like it's changed my life. I'm like, wow, but then I'm kind of spoilt because I live pretty much next to Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
So connectivity to me is like, it's just, what do you mean? That's what I was saying about national trains. Like I've said to someone earlier about national trains where I've had to wait 40 minutes.
Yeah.
For a next train to come, and that was just like unheard of for me. Like my brain couldn't comprehend what was happening. I was just, So for other people that travel that way all the time, this is literally life changing to them to cut it down to just a few minutes.
I think the whole buzz about Elizabeth line is that it's nothing to do with the train. It's actually to do with the fact that the Queen is really old and everybody's just like feeling really sentimental about her because she's going to go soon. And I think this is, I'm sorry, she's going to go soon. When she didn't do that speech and everyone just freaked out. And it's like, oh no, actually it's okay because she's been spotted somewhere else smiling. It wasn't an avatar, it was her. People just like sighed with relief. But I really do think it's just some kind of sentimental. Why is it called Elizabeth line?
Okay,
that's
what would you call it?
Talkaoke line. I just wanted to touch the subject of something that changes your life dramatically, like with a new line. I don't use public transport as often, but and I don't exactly know what's the path of the new Elizabeth line, but I am still really annoyed that when I lived in Southeast London, there's no proper like tube or overground connection. You can only go by bus, which goes ages. So I lived just behind Greenwich in Charlton, and I was going every day to uni in Camberwell, which is, it's not this big of a distance. I would cycle every day around like half an hour, 40 minutes, but it's such a scary route because of the tracks and just cars in general, that I would take a bus instead, which goes over an hour. So every day I would be losing 2 hours of my life being in a public transport. And I also have a car sickness, so I can't read on a bus. So it's kind of a wasted time for me, or even work on my computer.
And now that's covered with the Elizabeth line. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Okay.
I'm asking.
You know what? I think Woolwich Arsenal is on the Elizabeth line now. So where did you live again? You live Charlton. Yeah, so you would. I don't think it goes through Camberwell though. So yeah.
So what about this area? Just like it's still not connected. Everyone just goes towards the center, but no one actually thinks about connecting those places, and it's so annoying because it's. I only moved back to the north side of the river because it's just connected better.
Well, it's good to have you here.
But I think it is still like the line itself is like, it's kind of helpful, but you just think about, I have some friends who live like around Leeds area, and they're like, our trains are so rubbish all the time, and you think like the Elizabeth line, we don't really need it, we're all so well connected anyway. Like it does mean that people who are northeast or northwest like can get into London better, but you just think, well, why do we just get all the trains and stuff like that, and it's so depressing.
In Leeds.
Because there's loads of places to get around to the Leeds, and like it's like such a big populated area, even in comparison.
Are we building these lines in the wrong places where we've already got loads of lines?
Yes, we should have started HS2 from the north, not from the south.
Okay, all right.
There was the leveling up thing that got cut short or whatever, and everything's just, they're still spending loads of money in London, but like everywhere else it's like, we don't have enough money to finish building that train line.
Okay, so all the money and all the buildings happening in London, everywhere else nothing's happening. Are we really levelling up? Do we want to go in that direction? Do we want to go in the direction of the concern about Queen Elizabeth? Do we want to talk more public transport chat? It's kind of up to you. Did you want to say something, Daniel?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so they've got, obviously there's the Crossrail that everyone's been waiting for. So I think, part of the hype around the Elizabeth line is that now that's finally been constructed and completed. That's why everyone's got excited about it, because it's taken so long.
Okay, so it's sort of been coming, and then
this is it. So it starts now. Our focus starts going on the Crossrail, which will actually go completely outside of London and connect.
Right.
Yeah, most of England. That's the idea anyway. But whether that happens in my lifetime, I don't know.
So you wait ages for a train line, and then 3 come along all at once. Anyway, where are we going to go with this conversation? That's my question to you, all of you. Do you want to talk about the Elizabeth line? Do you want to talk about
the quest coming back to central London? Does anybody went to central London and can notice that basically the pre-COVID stimulation of London happened?
What are you saying? Are you saying there's nothing going on?
Are we back to the old days, or we still have like a very empty West End and empty central London?
I don't know. I've not been there, so I don't know. Has anyone been to central London? You've been there? Were there people there?
There were people. I was in Covent Garden, and it was just so touristy. And I remembered why I don't ever go there, because it's just so overcrowded, pointless shops. It's a diamond shop there. Not one, but 2.
Right, there's people that need diamonds. Ellen, what were you going to say?
Oh no, I was in Oxford Street this morning actually. It's the best time to go in the morning because there's less people, I guess.
Is it busy there?
You know what? Yes, it's busy. However, it's not as busy as it used to be from what I saw. A lot of shops have closed down.
Yeah.
There's a lot of American sweet shops.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that it's a front for money laundering. That's only if you're on TikTok, you may see that a lot of people expose these shops as money laundering shops. I have no idea, but they are often empty. They're always empty.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. So is Central London just simply a money laundering kind of place these days? Is that what we want to talk about? Do you want to go down that line? Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, go.
Can I just say a big thank you to all the people that felt it necessary to be on the Elizabeth line yesterday or the first day, and they were queuing up at the stations.
Yeah.
And people trying to get the work on the Elizabeth line couldn't actually do it because there's people jammed in there to do the first ride.
Really?
Which defeats the whole purpose of the line, doesn't it? Really, it's supposed to be. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people with bragging rights think that they've done something because they were on the first one.
Right, I didn't even know that. Oh, we've got another new person. Maybe Timna can help us out with this dilemma about which direction to take this conversation. Is it a dilemma or dilemma? That's another thing we can add. Ellen?
What's everyone's favorite line? I was on the Metropolitan line the other day and I thought, this is actually quite nice. I like the way the seats are, and I like the way the sort of carriage has that sort of frame.
Yeah.
It's quite a nice line, the Metropolitan line.
So good trains. Come and join in. A moment we're talking about public transport. Have you ever not paid for your ticket on public transport? You've on the DLR. Okay, well, come and tell us about it. Come over. Oh, you need to get on the DLR.
But I hear the ticket inspectors are back now, so you better be careful. Be careful.
They are back. Okay, so watch out. If you get caught, just blame each other. That works. Right. We welcome Tim there online at the moment. We sort of started talking about public transport, and we're talking about all sorts of various aspects for public transport. What to do if you see someone getting abused. What to do if you get abused on public transport. And also, like the Elizabeth line. What about Queen Elizabeth? How long has she got? And there's also, and then there's Central London. What's happening in Central London? So these are all it's a very transport-based conversation today. There's been a few things. Should we privatise? Should we be building? Should we nationalise? Should we be building trains up north rather than in London? All these things. And we've run out of batteries, but we're still here. I'm going to spotlight myself. So. We knew we were ready. We're ready for this controlled experiment. Okay, so Evie.
I think that I might be a bit sexist, which I'm a bit ashamed of, because I'm fine with the Queen. She exists, but I really don't want to have a king. I feel like that feels quite weird and like makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. Like the Queen at the moment just feels like your grandma.
Come and join in. What do you think about?
Oh, you mean the king who brings his initial girlfriend back to power? Who basically managed to swindle around to bring his old girlfriends in the public eyes.
Hang on a second, let me just ask you one question. Queen or king? What's better? Okay, food for thought. She's
got a point.
Yeah. Is it a chicken and egg situation? Come and join in if you want to. 5 minutes. Give us 5 minutes. Anyway, David, you were going to say something, I believe.
I don't know if I was going to ask about these monkeypox things.
Monkeypox. Well, that is a radically different subject. So it's kind of up to the audience whether
they want to move around.
Yeah, monkeypox. Maybe you want to say a little bit about what it is, because it looks like not everyone is familiar with the monkeypox phenomenon.
Well, apparently, it's a new virus who basically is spreading like by touching.
Okay.
So basically, it's like even more virulent than the COVID. So they only got like few cases, but basically, and apparently, it's only limited to gay population for the moment. So. Anyway, it's strange, but because basically that's it. That's a new virus we're going to go through.
Okay, I'm just going to put it out there. See if people want to talk about that. Do you want to go monkeypox, or do you want to? And we just switch lines from talking about public transport, or do we want to? Let's have a show of hands. Public transport, Queen Elizabeth, monkeypox.
But did you go through the archive and find some of the subjects you had when you started with Talkaoke? You should be doing that, I guess. Bringing like the old subject or bringing some old, find out the mood change when the Talkaoke change.
Did the mood change? Well, we were talking about the royal family and public transport right from the very beginning, I can tell you that. Maybe we could combine the subjects and talking about whether the Queen is vulnerable to monkeypox.
I have a theory that during the pandemic, that our immune systems were taken down a peg or two.
Compromised.
Yeah, compromised indeed. And I think that in the wake of the pandemic, that anything that comes along now may have a more profound effect.
Okay.
So
we're more vulnerable to the monkeypox.
I think we are. I think our immune systems have kind of had enough.
Okay. Are our immune systems compromised now? Is the Queen's immune system compromised? What about going on public transport? Do we feel compromised about that? Linking it all together.
I feel compromised. No, I'm not compromised. I feel conflicted about being scared of something that's called monkeypox. It just sounds too funny and too not serious. It's like Satan sounds like food now. It's not scary. I'm not scared of hell. I don't know how you pronounce it in this country. Or like Beelzebub. Oh, that's another name for the devil. It's just too funny. It's like, I can't think of it. They need to rebrand the
monkeypox needs a rebrand.
Sorry to all the Christians at the table, me included, but it does pass like a virus actually. I can't take monkeypox seriously. You need to think of a better name. Scarier.
Hang on a sec, because we've got a new viewer coming in online or participant. It is Paul. At the moment, we're at we're at a bit of a crossroads at the moment because we were talking about public transport. Have you ever jumped the train? Have you ever not actually paid for your ticket? And then the whole thing about public transport, could it be better? People getting abused in public transport. Then we moved on to the Elizabeth line, abusing Elizabeth. And then we changed tracks really, but suddenly monkeypox has come up.
Oh no!
And can that be? There's a few issues with monkeypox. Number one, has it got too silly a name to actually be a dangerous disease?
Seconded. I agree completely. That just sounds like a made-up name.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't even know what's the real names. I made that up. I know it's monkey something.
Okay.
I don't even know if he's monkey.
Yeah, it sounds like a terrible. Yeah, it does sound like really bad. Just a really bad name to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
But then what about chickenpox? You know, that you get when you're a child. I mean, I took that seriously. You know, it's kind of like a rite of passage getting chickenpox.
Yeah.
You have parties.
You know what? Time will tell. But I know chickenpox is from the herpes virus.
Right.
Like it's one of them, right? Yeah. So you know, it's either you. Oh, fantastic! That makes me feel good. I'm educated.
Yeah.
So chickenpox. I mean, monkeypox. I don't think it comes from the herpes virus.
Yeah.
Or no, I didn't get any nods there. So anyway.
Yeah.
But so I mean, I don't know where I was going with that point.
Well, it's just some good facts to have about pox, basically.
My friend works in an STI clinic, and she was quite excited last weekend because that week they had their first case of monkeypox.
Okay.
But she didn't seem very worried. She seemed excited. She wasn't worried. She hadn't had to quarantine. So I'm hoping that means that's a good thing, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Or you might not want to touch me. I don't know.
Are you worried about monkeypox? That's what we're talking about right now.
I'm not worried about monkeypox.
No.
No.
Is it because it's got a silly name, monkeypox?
No, it hasn't got a silly name because I know my husband's from West Africa and actually they have bushmeat.
Right.
And if you eat the bushmeat, you can get monkeypox. So
Right.
I've got a very close connection.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't eat bushmeat when I go to Ivory Coast.
Oh, right.
Because
Okay.
it's known, you know?
Okay, so it's a known thing.
It's
in
a
West
known
Africa.
thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
in
mean,
Ivory
is it
Coast.
something to worry about? Because I think the biggest fear is not knowing.
Close contact, that's the issue.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're advertising is the close contact. But I'm not worried personally, no.
No. Okay, because you're.
But I've got knowledge of it.
Yeah. What's your
firsthand.
name?
Julie.
Julie. We got Pete. We got Laura. We got Ellen. We got Evie, we've got Margot, we've got Gonzo, we've got Daniel and Ian, and I'm Mikey. Come and join in if you want to.
Oh, I would love to.
Have a drink. There's a couple of subjects on the table. There's a monkeypox phenomenon, but also we're talking a little bit about public transport and the Elizabeth line.
My surname is Elizabeth, so I'm very happy about that.
You're happy about it, okay. And then there's a thing about if we lose our queen, should there be a king? Anyway. Ian,
I was just going to say, who believes in monkeypox? Yeah, sorry. I tried to fit in there, it didn't work, it's going off the list.
Anyway, okay, right, well that's part of, what we're here to do over here. Yeah, Daniel.
I was just going to say, just echoing your feelings around Elizabeth, a queen rather than a king. So it didn't help that he took up, the option to do her speech, and everyone, it wasn't a disappointment that it was him doing the speech, it was his actual speech was just terrible. Right. So that hasn't, this is it. And it has
the delivery that was bad, or what
it was like short, he had no conviction in there. It was, you could, as you said, you could tell it was him reading, it's not, and this doesn't promote much faith when the Queen goes, that he will be the one that takes over.
So you're not really feeling it for Charles,
I think, I never thought I'd ever say this, but in his defence, it is the government speech that they hand to them basically the day before, if that, or on the day.
So it's written by Boris Johnson.
Absolutely, And if you're someone like Charles, with all these green credentials, to read a Tory party manifesto,
so you think it
doesn't inspire confidence.
He wasn't inspired by the speech, and that's why he didn't do a good delivery.
Yeah, and he's pretty crap anyway. So
I got questions. Does the Commonwealth network will be better than the European network for England?
Okay, that's a big one.
Question there. What was the question?
Is the Commonwealth network better than the European network for England? I mean, you're talking about Brexit versus the Commonwealth. Is that what you're going on about?
Does the Commonwealth will be able to provide as much as the European network did, in order to deliver food and in order to deliver all the services England needs?
It's pretty spread out, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty spread out across the world. It's not
Isn't
quite
that a good thing, though?
not very local.
Yeah. Come down to Talkaoke, get some free drinks. That's Mikey saying.
I can't understand why all these countries that have been abused by Britain would want to be in any kind of organised thing with a Queen as a head and still maintain some kind of, I don't know, economic ties. It's beyond me that they would want to be that club of former colonies. It's just, why?
They need it, you're saying, David.
Yes.
Where do we want to go with this?
I don't know, but we don't have like free movement between the Commonwealth, do we? In the same way that you'd have free movement within Europe, right?
Okay, Julie, do you know a bit about this?
I know a bit about the Commonwealth. My parents are from a Commonwealth country, St. Lucia. I think that the UK benefits more from the Commonwealth than the Commonwealth countries benefit from the UK.
So is it a bit of a kind of colonial relationship?
I think so. Yeah, definitely.
So,
and I'm sick of seeing the Queen on the money. I like the Queen, but I don't like to see her on the money when I go to the Caribbean. I really don't.
So was that St. Lucia? You said?
Yes.
So in St. Lucia, there's a picture of the Queen on the actual notes.
And the stamps.
Wow. Okay. So but those people in St. Lucia have not got a right to travel freely in the UK.
They can come. I believe it's 3 months without any restrictions, and then after that, 90 days. Yeah.
After that, it's
go back.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in St. Lucia earlier this year. Wow, what a beautiful place. But I agree. It's just like, my family are from Jamaica, and absolutely. I think the UK has benefited so much, tremendously, and are still benefiting from that time. So I think it's time to move on now. I'm not sure if, like what you said, David, I'm not sure whether or not they do need, the Queen as the head. And, it's linked to so much trauma. I mean, it's linked to the enslavement of African people, which was heinous. So I think perhaps it is time to move on now. Okay.
But I mean, how would you like to see that move on? Is it about cutting ties with Britain?
Well, yeah, I think it is about like cutting ties. I believe that even some of the Commonwealth countries still owe debt to the UK.
Right.
So I mean, and also a lot of the slave owners were like compensated. Obviously, the enslaved people were not compensated, so they're still living in poverty, you know. So you can see where the slave owners who many are wealthy in Britain today, many people own houses in Britain today because they had slaves, you know, while the descendants of slaves did not reap those same rewards, you know what I mean? All they have is their last names and the trauma. So I think it's time to move on now, you know. It's 2022. So
all right, well, I mean, that's a strong point there, but I think we still need to know how they're going to move on, what the actual, you know, what the new kind of, let's say, dispensation would be, and what would be the new relationship with Britain. Final thoughts from you?
Final thought is that talking about the Commonwealth, who came to this country, saved in 2 world wars, and never really received the recognition for it.
Right.
You had Indian troops on the Western Front. Now, if I was an Indian person fighting in France for Britain, I'd be totally confused, and not to get the credit that they deserve for that. And obviously it's New Zealand and it's Canada and all these places, but mainly kind of African and Indian nations that have had their wealth stolen from them to build buildings in central London. I would like to see them have their own governments and to be aided in that sense, because we do have structure in this country, but to give them that and not to be abused anymore.
Okay, so there's a lot, I think there's a lot needs to, from what people are saying, needs to change about the Commonwealth. See you later, thanks very much. Welcome to Talkaoke.
It's an unequal relationship. You can't imagine that a nation like St. Lucia, with a population of less than 300,000 people, is going to be able to send a delegation and compete and negotiate the same way that the UK can. It's not realistic.
Okay, so I mean, we're talking about the Commonwealth, we're talking about...
Barbados is lead.
Okay.
Independence,
Welcome, have a seat. It looks like we've got a whole load of new people. We need more. We need more chairs. Grab a drink. There's some drinks over there on the table. Help yourself. And when we're talking, this is Talkaoke Freeform Talk Show, where we just go from subject to subject. We were talking about public transport. That went to, you know, do you always pay for your ticket on public transport? And then we went to, what about abuse that you see on public transport? How do you deal with that? Then we moved to the Elizabeth line. And then we moved to this question about Elizabeth herself. And now we're talking about the Commonwealth. There was a little bit of a detour via monkeypox. Go on, David.
Questions.
Yeah.
Paul's got questions. He had his hand up. Paul on the Zoom.
Yeah, come and take a seat. Come on, we'll give you a round of applause. We have got. Oh, Daniel, you're going to go. Give us a final thought before you go.
Final thought. Well, it's getting quite deep now, so I'd love to stay and get involved in this, because it was something I wanted to bring up earlier, but I didn't know how it would go down. But just saying, for my first time being here, this is absolutely brilliant. You know, it needs to inspire more of these sort of debates going about, and I'm glad to see so many people. I was actually quite worried that I was going to leave and there wouldn't be enough, and then all of a sudden there's loads of people, which tends to happen with me when I decide to leave. It all starts happening. But no, it looks brilliant, and I'm definitely back for the next one as well.
Well, thanks for joining, and thanks for giving us your tips about how to deal with unruly passengers on the bus as well.
So what's happened on the 10th of July?
What's that?
What's happened on the 10th of July?
10th of July is the 25 years of Talkaoke celebration. So that's the big one. Anyway, we've got a whole bunch of new faces. So Daniel's leaving us. We've got Ellen. Is it Julie? And we got Pete. We got Laura on the crisp bags. Give us your name.
Selena.
Selena, welcome.
Jenny.
Jenny, yeah.
Jared.
Jared, okay.
Charpal.
Charpal, yeah.
Maximilian.
Maximilian. Okay, and we've got Evie over here and Gonzo and Mikey. Is it time to do a refresh? Because part of this session is we always like to have a different new host on the table. So we're going to welcome Evie. I would say, Evie, come over here. Probably the best bit. We're going to just have a refresh of host. But stay in there. I'll just recap I've kind of talked about what we've been talking about so far. The whole point of Talkaoke is can go in any direction you want it to go in. And if you want to grab a drink from over there, you're very welcome to as well. We're going to have a little change over just because I've been doing this for hours now. So we're just going to welcome Evie in the middle of the table, and I'm going to hit the...
I can go underneath.
No, it's fine. Just sit on the thing here, legs together, spin around. Perfect entry there from Evie. Let me give you...
Hello, I'm Evie. I'm in the middle now. So welcome to Talkaoke. I'm just gonna put my headset mic on. Hello. Can you guys hear me now? I think that works, doesn't it? Hello guys, so my name's Evie. This is Talkaoke. It's a pop-up talk show where you guys are the VIPs. I'm sitting in the middle, so I can't give any of my opinions now, which is a shame, because I had quite a lot right before I went in. So I think Mikey's kind of done a bit of a recap so far. So we've had a little bit of talk about royalty, how we feel about it, the Commonwealth. Some people brought up monkeypox. Are we worried about it? And public transport. So are any of those topics ones that people want to pick up on? Do you guys want to throw in like a whole new topic to discuss? We're open. Mikey?
No, just because obviously, as you just said, in the middle you can't say your own thing, but I do think it is, we don't really, just because we've not got an empire, people think that all of that is kind of disappeared, but it's not at all actually. And my family's actually from South Africa, and what you realise when you go to South Africa is that, okay, you might have a black African man running the country, but everything is owned still by the British. They own everything, so they own all the businesses, if it's not the British, it's the Americans. So it's kind of like, it's not actually sort of starting from scratch. It's actually, it's just business as usual. Exactly. Yeah.
Really? Yeah, I was just going to say, I think white South Africans are 5% of the population, owning something like 98% of the wealth. It's just a lot to deal with when you really think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so you might have this political change, but have you actually got actual change?
Yeah, it's true, because the British Empire got flipping a third of the whole land speaking English. So in terms of colonies, the colony power is still there, but it's just it may not be physical sort of ownership from Britain themselves, but the after effects of colonization is still there. Yeah.
So we're kind of living through these after effects. Are they something that we see still in the UK? Do we see it around the rest of the world?
I mean, on the subject of like power and business as usual, I was listening to a podcast about Alexei Navalny. He's a Russian oppositionist, and he's currently in like a labor camp because he's been put on this trial for being like too strong opposition, but really they kind of put him in prison based on some kind of corruption charges. And everyone's like, oh my God, yeah, he's just such a great oppositionist. He's just so standing up to the government. But the truth is that, from what I understand, he was trying to get with the government, which is completely corrupted and run by oligarchs. And he was like, well, if I do business correctly, then I'm going to capitalize on it. And then he turned out that the country's so corrupted that he can't make the big bucks that he wanted to. And then he turned into being the oppositionist. And I'm like, so, like, what's going on here? I mean, if you kind of let people do what they want to do, will we just, like, replicate the thing? Are we just, like, basically pissed off that someone else is more rich than us? Is this basically what's going on? I mean, I'm not saying this is the case with the colonies, but isn't it? I mean, are people just, like, pissed off that they were just, like, so marginalized and so, like, not able to live with dignity and have wealth, but other people do? And is this really the issue?
We've also got people online, and I know that we've got a hand up from Paul online. Do you want to jump in on this thought that Margot's saying about?
Yeah, sure. I'm really interested because what I see is politics is mostly about trading agreements, tends to form the sort of relationship of things. So what it is, you've got a sort of this imperial approach where we own stuff, as you said, like the UK or the England or the East India Company. That was all business. All of it was business. It was all driven by business. And then it got turned into an empire. Well, it's a business and it's an empire. It's sort of got the Queen at the top of it. What's that about? So then when that's all gone, where's the business? Why isn't, if you talk about reparations, then let's talk about like how giving them a good trade economy so we can mutually benefit. Where's that gone? Where's that not in the mix? I find that really interesting because just bringing it back to London, huge parts of it are owned by people from other countries too. There's a real sense of not a lot of Londoners or people who live there don't actually feel part of their own area because they not just because of who's moved into the area necessarily, it's because they don't own any of it. People coming to the place can't afford to actually, especially youngsters. I mean, I'm not a youngster and I can't afford it. So that's my take. I think what happens is that it's sort of golden rules that are at play here, and it would be really good if you. I think it's a ball that's been dropped. I think if you instead of having to talk with New Zealand or Australia, why can't we talk to the people that are already in this commonwealth? It's a funny word, right?
Okay, I mean, like Paul's brought up a lot of ideas there, so maybe that blurring between business and power, about who we do business and trade deals with in the leftover Commonwealth.
The fact is, it isn't a Commonwealth. The only wealth is in the West. There's no Commonwealth in St. Lucia. When you go there, I can't afford to buy property there. I can't even afford to move from the property I bought here. What I'm saying about Margot when she was saying that people pissed off because they haven't got money and others don't. That's not it. We want recognition of what's happened. That's all. And that's the main thing, really. The royal family have had many opportunities to apologise for slavery, and they just swerve. They just say, oh, it's atrocious, but never really copping to it. And that's the problem, I think.
What would recognition look like for you or for the rest of people around the table? What do people think?
I think it would look like what happens in New Zealand, where the Maoris are recognised, where there's a dual language, where it seems to be much better in New Zealand. That's what it would look like to me.
There we go. So maybe like we can look to other countries who've sort of dealt with their colonial past a bit better. We had sort of business trades. There's sort of a theme of property coming up as well, about who gets to own what and what kind of access we get to that as well.
Well, I never really thought about it before, but it is sort of linked to the thing about property because actually it's a very, very few, we talk about Commonwealth. It's the actually opposite of that. It's a very small concentration of people that own everything. Who owns, I don't think there's a single person, apart from me, that owns, Akbal's just joined in, that actually even owns their flat. So, and that's just one tiny little space. And then, all of this stuff, who owns all of this? It's all owned by very, very, very rich people. So we've got a long way to go. We're going the wrong direction, really.
Would everyone agree? Do you think we're going in the wrong direction? Do people think there's hope?
My honest take on this is that as long as there's currency, as long as there's money or anything like that, wealth would always be in the hands of the few. Even if you was to one day completely reverse it where everyone has the same amount of money in their pocket, eventually after a decade eventually you'll see the money going back into the hands of the few that probably originally were wealthy. So it's just a concept where in anything you're gonna have people that are more dominant in an aspect and people that are less dominant in an aspect. It's not just money. So yeah, that's my belief.
Okay, so we've got maybe maybe that we kind of move towards trends of like smaller groups of people holding power. Are we agree that some years kind of over here
I
as
want
well?
to say something. My cousin used to work for Bank of New York, and she used to work in the private property office. I work in property with one of the major estate agents, but she used to work in the department where when a child was born, apartment block would be put in their name as a trust. And she said those properties never changed hands. They were wealth from grandfather to father to son to his son. And that's how wealth is in New York. It's already, by the time you're born, you've got a trust fund set up. And that's a totally different level, Okay,
we've got some thoughts over here as well.
Playing devil's advocate, couldn't you argue that if value is in the hands of the few, that creates value? If it's for everybody, that's basically communism and there is no set value. By being by being it for something that has to be reached, for something to actually be something, having less people have it, isn't that a good thing? Like, yeah.
Oh no, it's a good thing to throw to the table. So yeah, like where does this idea of value come from? Like, should there be something that people want to like try and attain or try to get to? Where does anyone want to pick up on that?
Oh, I just wanted to talk about the thing that not a lot of people own their own houses, as Mikey said, and apparently it's also due to type of a lifestyle that people now like to have, when you are not bound by one specific place, but instead you can move around and be much more free in a sense, because you are out of the concept that your goal in life is to settle down in one place, have a family, and just stay in one place forever. Which I think, you know, there is something in it for me. I'm not exactly sure if this is my whole life, but like right now I don't mind it, but then I'm not saving up for a house, so maybe that's a mistake, but maybe I will never be able to afford it anyway, so we'll see.
So yeah, we're talking about wealth and talking about like maybe attaining some kind of wealth for yourself. Do you want to like be able to move around a lot? Do you want to be able to stay in one place?
The problem with properties in London is that they are used as commodities. So people don't actually live there, they just invest their money into it. And that's the problem. And I'm going to leave you guys. So this was my final thought.
Thank you, Andre. Can you leave us with any hope from that as well, or you think that housing is commodities, like that's kind of like the topic we should stay on as you go?
Yes.
Yes. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much. You've got a round of applause from the Talkaoke table, and I think this is a good time to go to Ellen.
I think Margaret had her.
Oh, are you sure? There we go.
I'm just interested in what you said. Sorry, I can't remember your name. What's your name? Selena, what Selena said about, you know, what creates wealth. And I think that's a really interesting point about, like, you know, if everybody owned everything, nothing would really, like, would anything have value? There's no aspiration. It's like, well, whatever I do. I mean, I recently went to Belgium, and there's like a third generation now of people living off the state benefit. Not because there's anything like they can't work. It's just because they are able to take their time to figure out what they want to do. And other people who pay their taxes are like, what the fuck? Like, you know, they're really angry, but they accept that. So I don't know, but yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's a good point to go to. I'm going to go to Ellen.
I was just going to say on the point of what you were saying about being able to move around. I guess sometimes it's about like having that, or the security that comes from having like a steady home. Because I know in London, like unless you live in like a council property, then you know you don't really have that security. Because I'm not sure. I know it just seems like whenever I meet people who live in private housing, it seems like every 2 years they're getting moved on, and sometimes with not much notice. So I just wonder, how does that make you? It doesn't make you feel secure if you know, okay, I can move on, or how do you build communities that way? Because I think there is value in community, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. So we've got the, you know, freedom versus being able to move around a lot. Can you build a community? Different types of housing.
And the thing is with wealth, another thing is with wealth is that people just confuse it for just the luxuries you can get from wealth, but really wealth is really about the choice and freedom of what you can do. So if you're wealthy, you can choose to stay where you are. You can choose to constantly be on the move. But if you're less wealthy, you're limited to the stuff which is given to you. Whether you have to stay in your council estate, and things are getting more dangerous. Knife crime is on the rise. If you're wealthy, you don't have a choice. You just have to endure it.
Mm-hmm. So there's that idea that actually wealth, it's not just luxuries, but it's like ease of access and kind of like being able to move or make the choices that you want.
I think you made a really good point, actually, because I remember when people were kicking off about, you know, like, or trying to monitor what people spend their like benefits money on. It's like, oh no, you can't spend on this because that's just like, that's unnecessary. And it's like the minute you start like delineating like what is a good way of spending your money and what isn't, it's just like, yeah, you're taking away choice from people. But I mean, like, why?
Gonzo, I'm going to go to Gonzo and then Paul. But first of all, Gonzo, just you've got a point, and then Paul will go to you.
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
I'll go to Gonzo and then you, Paul.
Okay.
Okay.
Kind of continuing on your point about about the tracking of the value, that nowadays it's not necessary anymore because the advertising is kind of following you, what you're spending on, and then kind of betting on your spending. So it doesn't matter really. Like,
okay, so Gonzo, you've thrown kind of advertising into there as a value, with ideas of value. So we might pick up on that. But I'm going to go to Paul because you've been very patient on the chat with your hand up. Paul.
Hello. Yeah, I agree completely about the point about advertising. There are a few things about wealth and relative wealth and self-perception of wealth. Like the young man said that about the ability to make choices. That's all well and good. There are things about how you inherit wealth and how some people talk it up. Like you can get wealthy too, but they've been born into it, or they've had huge jump starts already. They've got rich family, they've got rich connections. They're born into those networks. So some of us don't get those opportunities. This is sometimes just an accident of whatever. And then also there's a funny thing that happens: the more wealthy you get, the less you feel towards others. I think there's some sort of psychological research that's gone into this about empathy and about how basically everyone becomes, you don't need to rely on anyone. Everything can be bought. You can just get things done. That's sort of dark side of what that young man was saying. Your choice is so wide and open. You don't actually need to rely upon the goodness of others because you can buy it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Paul. So there's kind of a few things going on there. So like wealth maybe isn't just about money. It's about like the networks that you're born into. And then also it allows you to maybe separates you from others.
I don't think wealth directly makes you more sort of stingy or less considerate. I think it makes you more skeptical. And when you're skeptical, it's kind of like a feeling, an internal feeling of fear that all eyes are on you. Like, because the wealthier you get, the more of a target you become. So from external people, you don't know whether they could try to be using you to their advantage, or them trying to gain something from you. So automatically, your system is going to be more closed off, and therefore you're going to come across as more stingy, and stuff like that.
Okay, so maybe wealth is you're more skeptical, cautious of people rather than maybe you're less empathetic towards people. Timna, online, you've got your hand up. Am I saying your name right? And
yeah, perfect.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I totally agree with Paul and with the young man who just mentioned about the stinginess. So, but I think these are like two different things. I think concerning let's say the stinginess or being suspicious about like getting robbed, let's say like that. I think my sister once told me she was in India years ago, and there was a tuk-tuk driver who just told her the best thing for him is like he doesn't want to have too less money, but because then it's hard, but it's also bad to have too much money because then you have to worry about this fact of being a target. And I think from what Paul mentioned, this, when you can buy everything, it's totally true that you don't have to rely on anything or on anyone. And I think this is what a lot of people already mentioned, like that wealth is also coming from things which you can't buy. I mean, you can buy a service, but you cannot like buy this relationship which you can have with someone. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So we've got quite a lot of ideas about how wealth changes you, how wealth maybe changes other people's perceptions.
I've got a cousin in Baltimore who's a talk show host, and he always says to me, money doesn't make you who you are. Money just shows you more of the person that you are.
Oh, okay.
He said it just will expose what kind of person you are. If you were generous, you were always going to be generous with money. If you were bad with money, if you've got money, you're going to be bad with it. It just shows you more of who you are.
Do people agree with that? Do you think having more access to money shows you who more you are? We've got a couple of shakes of the heads over there. Remind us of your name.
Jenny. I think I disagree with that because I feel like it helps to aid and create you into a person. So I feel like without money, okay, I might be a certain person, but when I have money, that will change me, or I'll have access to other resources, and that will in turn shape who I become.
Okay, so Jenny's got a bit of a counterpoint there that actually kind of allows you to shape who you become.
But will it change you for the better or worse, though?
See,
Like,
I never said it changes you for the better. It just changes.
Just changes you.
No, but rich people have all got like therapists and stuff like that, and they're actually.
Which world do we need to stop kids like killing other kids, like coming with like a machine gun in the classrooms and killing other kids? Which kind of world do you need to stop that?
I mean, do you think that's something to do with money, David?
It needs, very definitely is linked to pressure. Is linked to perceptions, like basically the world is made out of money and the world is made of blink.
Okay, so I think David, you brought up some
Sorry
kind of
about
like,
that.
some of
I
the
do
stories
apologize for that.
the week in the news. I think from the US about violence that's been going on. You're saying that maybe that comes from pressure rather than money. I had some words over here about mental health, and Timna online, you've also got a point. I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I might not have heard everything because my connection's not that stable. But I wanted to say what David just mentioned. I don't know why this happened in the US, but I also think it would be nice to have like kind of an experiment and thinking about, okay, what actually would we need to restart from scratch, from zero, so that, let's say, no one has power, no one has money. Would that make us happy? Or like, what would we need to have like fulfilled lives for everyone? Like, there's not a single person in the world who doesn't has a lack of anything. Yeah, that would be kind of interesting.
Brilliant. So Tim, so I pushed it way out into like, what do we actually need to be happy as humans? Is it money? Is it networks? Is it community? I kind of saw a hand up here somewhere. Jared.
One thing I must say is that it's easy said just talking someone from the bottom or in the audience. Like, when I mean that is the average Joe earning the average wage. It's easy for them to look up to the rich man and say, oh, that person could have passed down their money to so many people, or that person could have done this and that. When truly, when they themselves would that be in that position, they'll did exactly the same thing. But loads of people wouldn't want to admit to that. So I think it's more of a talk thing. Yeah, it's more of a talk thing. 100%.
Brilliant. That's a good point from Jared. But Jenny, you might have a counter. You might have something to add.
No, something to add, because I think it's also people's intention of money, in the sense some people like strive for money, like their jobs and everything is based around money, whereas other people are kind of just using money to like live life, but then like their jobs are around happiness, and that's how they get happiness. Whereas I think other people use money as a source of happiness, and that's what causes like there to be a differentiation between why there is like the rich, because they might not necessarily be as happy, but then that is their drive to happiness.
Okay, so Jenny, you were still discussing about, do you do a job for fulfillment itself? Do you do a job to get money to be fulfilled? We've got Mikey.
I mean, I think they did some research that showed that rich people are generally happier to a certain point, which actually isn't that high. It's about 200,000 or 300,000 a year. And after that, rich people don't get any happier the more money they get, because they're always looking up. They're not looking down at the people that have got less than them. They're looking at all the people. There's always somebody richer than you, unless you're Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. And they're always thinking, oh, if only I was a bit richer so I could have my own space rocket company.
They still look at Putin and
Do you get so rich then you actually want a country? I don't know. We've got a couple of new faces around the table, so I'm just going to do a quick round of names.
Gonzo,
Mikey,
Robert,
Charlie,
Elam,
Julie. We go all the way over here.
Pete,
Margot, Jenny,
Jared,
Charpol,
Maximilian,
Akbar.
Brilliant. Okay, so we were talking about who do the wealthy look up to when you've got everything. What do you want next, Margot?
I'm just curious about this subject of happiness, because I think I can just like list lots of things which I think would make me happy. They're all kind of reliant on whether I can buy them or not. But it just makes me think of like the nature of happiness. Like, what is it? And is it even possible?
About being yourself.
Yeah, but is it in this day and age possible to be yourself without having all the accessories that express who I am? Can I just feel like anything happiness is just completely attached to what you can or can't buy, or actually what you can buy and not can't buy. And so happiness is just a very tricky thing to achieve these days. I don't know what people think. What makes you happy?
What happens once you can afford everything?
Pete is asking what happens when you can't afford anything.
Can I have a quick word?
Jenny, you might have an answer, and then we'll go to David.
I also think it's like down to the people's perception of happiness, in the sense back in the olden day when money wasn't as as known for like success and stuff. People didn't have that much money for happiness, in the sense like they had art around them and they had different forms of happiness, or like connecting to other people, and social connections is what they made them happy. And to talk to people, you don't need money. To create art, you don't need money. Like, okay, yeah, sometimes to have the best artworks and stuff, you need money to display it, but you're doing it for yourself. And if you're doing it for yourself, you can find other means without money to gain happiness.
I quite like that point from Jenny. So do you need money to make art? And Akbar, you had another thought.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking
to buy it.
that if you go to the National Gallery, it's full of paintings commissioned by incredibly wealthy people of their pineapples and their boats and their whatever, lobster, and it was just a way to show off their wealth. Just as buying a Bentley or whatever is similarly a way to show off your wealth. And I'm not sure that in the past wealth wasn't a big thing. I think it was more so then than today. Now I suppose digital environment has made us a little bit more equal in some respects.
Okay.
And lots of not very wealthy people can appear quite wealthy.
Okay.
In their Insta feeds and whatever.
So does digital technology maybe allow us to make ourselves look more wealthy than we are? I'm just breaking the Talkaoke table. Sorry, David. You did have a point. I ignored you.
Okay.
So this is a good time to bring you in.
Okay, I got this. I had this idea of like short films, which made out of like somebody looking for scratch cards and collecting scratch cards and making a dress out of it. And so basically, is a gay man dressed with dress made out of scratch cards. And basically, what's the benefit of it? Basically, is more like the money was like representing by the scratch cards, or being able to dress as a woman when you're a man.
Okay, I mean, there's lots of things to unpack there. Mikey, did you want to respond to any of them?
No, well, I just wanted. I know Timna wanted to say something, but to me, that dress would be much more enticing if the scratch cards were unscratched.
Yeah.
And they were, that there could be some invitation to do some scratching.
Okay, Timna, did you have any thoughts on a dress made of scratch cards, or using digital media to make us look more happy than we are?
Yeah, it was more related to what Akbar just mentioned with digital or let's say social media making us look more wealthy, or because I think it's quite kind of interesting that we say being wealthy is equal to being happy, because for me it doesn't really, my personal logic, it doesn't work like that. It's more like I would say being healthy is being happy, kind of that thing I would say.
Is being healthy, I'm going to pick up on that because I like that as a point in there. Is being healthy equating to you guys are being happy? Do you guys feel like there's a pressure to look wealthy on social media? Where are we going to take this? Go Ellen and then Jenny.
Did you say being healthy equals to happiness, Timna? Is that what Timna said? Being healthy is happiness?
You got thumbs up from
Okay,
Timna.
yeah, I would definitely agree, because when your health is gone, that's when you realize, oh my gosh, wow. Like, that's when you really value what being healthy is like. Like, say your knee starts aching and you can't walk, that's when you remember, oh my God, wow. Like, I remember what it was like when I didn't have these problems. So yeah, I definitely think health is wealth,
Health is wealth. Lots of shaking heads from Jenny over here.
I disagree with that to an extent, because often some people, especially I've noticed it with like young people, even though they might not be healthy, or like they might have like health issues or underlying conditions and stuff, sometimes they're the most positive people I've met. They're the most like happiest and ambitious, and they're so optimistic despite the state they're in. And due to that, I don't think I'd agree with that, because I think often when you're unhealthy, because you kind of had that reality and you have that shift in like reality and like what the world's actually worth, that causes you to become more happy to a degree.
And Jared, did you have a point you wanted to add to that as well?
Yeah, I would say out of all of the different aspects, health is the factor that aligns the most to happiness. I would say so. Which is why the statement earlier was mentioned that after a certain tax bracket or something like that, the happiness ratio doesn't really increase with the amount of money you make. That's because what wealth does is it satisfies you in an extent where the basic necessities you'll be able to achieve that, but after a certain level, more money isn't really required for the human happiness. Then after that, it's just add-ons basically.
Okay, brilliant. So we've got health as wealth. We've got like there's a certain level of wealth that kind of helps you get on with life, and then it's kind of a bit of a ceiling. What does healthy mean to people? Charlie, you wanted to say something earlier.
Oh yeah, I'm just sort of wanted to take it back. The thing about is there pressure to look wealthy on social media? Maybe that is true, but I think also a lot of people who have wealth find different ways of camouflaging it. I did coincidentally find myself recently, not for myself, but viewing a reasonably expensive house for sale, and I was looking at the other people who were there to view it. You would not know that these were people who had like £1 million to spend on a house. And I think, just to bring it back to the royal family, I think the royal family are probably the ultimate thing that sort of camouflages what wealth and privilege like really is. They're like a nice kind of glossy veneer for what like it means to sort of have inherited privilege.
Yeah, is it camouflage? Yeah, Gina,
Yeah.
you wanna bring you in here?
I was just going to say, I don't think it's camouflage though. I think it's very apparent.
Yeah. Well, there might. What I'll do is I will. Why do you, tell us a bit more. Why do you think it's more?
Well, we know that the Queen has several hundreds of millions of pounds of her own personal wealth. Plus, she's got access to all the tiaras that we could ever want. Plus, and so it goes with the houses and the cottages and all of that. So it's not a camouflage. I think it's very apparent what their wealth means and what it stands for.
Brilliant. I'm going to go to our digital audience.
Anyway, that's my parting thought. I've got to go.
That's your final thought.
I've got to cook my rice.
We're going to get a round of
Bye-bye.
applause.
Thank you.
Charlie, I know you've got loads of things. I'm going to go to Paul just so we can, and then we'll come back to you. But I think this has maybe brought up a bit of tension here. Do people camouflage their wealth? Does the royal family camouflage their wealth? What does that mean? Paul, I'm going to go to you because you've been waiting patiently with your hand up.
Okay. Yeah. In relation to camouflage and everything, I think there's some different. It's like that lady said about what it shows of the true personality. I think people like George Michael, he was incredibly generous. He gave he was a really good. And Prince, he was another really famous person who was very generous, but never really told anyone about it. There are people out there who do things and they don't want to shout about it. But there is a story I heard a long time ago in a newspaper clipping somewhere about some Arabic gentleman in the middle of nowhere who had some stones handed down to his family. They were just coloured stones. They didn't really think much of them. And then one day some lighter fluid got onto the stones and took the sort of blurry edges off. And underneath he found it very shiny. And they were very expensive semi-precious jewels. And all of a sudden he was a very rich man. And then he was really bothered because lots of people wanted to know him at that point where they didn't want to know him before.
All right. I think that's a good story.
There is also, I'll just add to this and then I'm going. There's sort of an Arabic thing about not being overly wealthy is actually a bad thing anyway. I think it's true as a person. I think what that young man said about your living needs are bang on. It doesn't necessarily equate to being happy and content. Happy is overused. Contentment is what we seek.
Okay, so are we looking for contentment rather than happiness? Do people try and hide their wealth? If so, how? Are people generous? Charlie, you were desperate to say a counterbalance. I didn't let you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the thing that I meant about the royal family camouflaging their wealth is, obviously they got loads of it. Prince Charles owns the whole of Cornwall, but the idea that we get about the royal family is that that for their wealth, they offer a service, they do their duty, they bow their heads, they do stuff. And I think that 90% of the people whose lives are sort of run by inherited wealth in that country do not do those things. And so in that sense, they're like a kind of PR project for inherited wealth. That's what I was trying to say.
Maybe the royal family like seem more worthy than they actually are compared to their wealth. Akbar?
I'm not going to get into the royal family. That whole very contentious issue. None of their personal wealth is their personal wealth. I think this idea that people can be wealthy and have good intentions, that it is possible, but to be frank, when people, so for example, it's well known that when people win an awful lot of money, they tend to move their political opinions from left to right.
Okay.
They didn't do anything to earn that money. They've not changed their philosophical beliefs in any, fundamental learned way. They just acquired wealth by winning it. And now they've become conservative, as opposed to maybe more socialists when they didn't have the wealth.
So do you think would gaining a lot of money very suddenly make you more conservative? Do we think any thoughts over here? Selena, we haven't heard from you for a while.
I think that getting a lot of money does make you more conservative because of their beliefs. I mean, conservatives, they believe in minimal state and free policies for businesses and so forth. That in itself enriches wealth in the wealthier. So if you are working class, of course, you would prefer something more socialist because you do not have that wealth. So it would just make sense, you become wealthy as you get.
Jenny, do you want to add to that?
I kind of wanted to say, I don't think necessarily when you become wealthier, you become more capitalized, purely because I think you might potentially hide it, in the sense Steve Jobs, he was criticized so much for having large sums of money, and it was only when he died they realized that he was donating so much of what he was earning. So it was more, he didn't want to be known for donating money, and because of that, not loads, but quite a few people who become really wealthy suddenly, they do have the right intentions and stuff, but they might not demonstrate it purely because they don't
Yeah, maybe the very wealthy do need a PR team. Maybe the royal family's done well. Jared, did you have anything you wanted to add? And then I'm going to go to Timna online.
Of course, man. Like when you're part of the people, you're for the people, because you're part of the people. That's why, because you're not one of the few that has loads of things. So your argument is to bring everyone else up on the table. But to be honest, it's a lot of selfish mentality in terms of politics, because the average poor person would pick Labour or some sort of party similar because it favors them. If you're a richer person, you'd probably pick more conservative because it favors you. So it's not anything about being more generous or having a harsher mindset the richer you are. Really, it's just people's reality is different when they're at the top.
Brilliant. So, do people agree? Do you think, are we left wing or right wing, mostly due to self-interest? I'm going to go to, I did promise Timna online, if I'm going to go to you next. Have you got an answer to this or another thought related to it?
I don't have an answer to this, but my thought is related to that topic. So, I think that a lot of people, when they get a lot of money, they might change their political interests because they are afraid of losing their money, which they just got. But I don't think that all of us, we only vote for something where we get something out of it. But I think that generally a lot of people are really afraid of losing something, so they think they have to fight for. Just to give another example, I think it's with feminism. A lot of men are afraid of feminism because they're afraid that they would lose something if they would give more right to women.
Okay, so you maybe it's less about self-interest, maybe a bit more about fear. If you give a bit more, you might lose something. Mikey?
I think it's been shown that people are more concerned about losing stuff than gaining stuff. So if you're more likely to do the action which stops you from losing £1 than from gaining £1. And it's the same from, not any sort of political power, anything. It's about losing stuff. I think that's why Brexit was so successful, because it was about losing people. A lot of the older people felt they were losing power to Brussels rather than gaining something for it. So the losing was a much more powerful motivation than actually gaining anything.
I mean, what do people think, Jared?
And my personal opinion on that statement is that's the reason why wealth is in the hands of the few, because those people were willing to lose it all just for a chance to make something out of it, which not a lot of people are willing to do. So taking losses, being in debt, is actually, in my opinion, more significant than getting gains and being wealthy in a way.
There you go. So then we've got maybe a final thought here from Ellen. Thank you so much for taking part.
I really enjoyed the discussion today. Started off talking about transport. Now we're talking about wealth, a bit of health going on there, maybe sexism. Yeah, keep the conversation going.
Do you have a topic you can throw in for us?
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
You know what? Yeah, I have to agree with Timna there. I think a lot of the reason why men are not getting on board, well, men don't really understand because they are fearful of like losing the power, so maybe if they need to do a little bit more reading or something. I don't know.
There we go. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Ellen. Got a round of applause, an IRL round of applause, even better than the ones there. And you've got some waves as well from Timna. All right, yeah, so we've got talking about maybe if we're kind of like sharing or redistributing power, well, maybe people are scared. Maybe that feels like a loss to some people. Laura.
Well, I wanted to pick up on the topic that Ellen left us with, and the power that men are afraid to lose. But also, it also talks about other privileged groups that to achieve equal rights, they have to give back some power. But then the question is, it's kind of a wrong thinking about the subject, because if you had the power that never was supposed to be yours, do you give it back, or do you lose it, or do you actually give it back to put it in the right place where it's supposed to be from the beginning? And men will lose some of the power if we are going for the equal rights, and the same with the privileged people, the wealthy people, the white people. If we want to have equal rights and work on this, we do have to give some power back.
There we go. We've got Mikey. You've got a response here as well.
Yeah, I kind of disagree, because it's almost like what they call a zero-sum game. As if there's only a finite amount of power in the world, and in order for women to have power, for all different genders to have power, for minority groups to have power, that somehow that means taking away power from the privilege. But it doesn't. Actually, you're giving those people power and they're just getting more power, but actually you're not losing power. I think that, it's just such a simplistic thing. You think by giving other people power, do you lose power? No, you don't.
There we go. Yeah, do we think there's a finite amount of power? We get Akbar and then Maximilian.
I'm not entirely sure, because I think the thing is with women gaining power, they become as privileged as men and behave in the same way, potentially. Most of the people, I would guess, around the table probably aren't massive fans of Margaret Thatcher, or Theresa May for that matter. They both prime ministers of this country, female prime ministers, did quite well for themselves, quite clever people on the whole. And
sorry, it's been recognized that women look after more people than men. So, but if you give power to women, they will benefit. The benefit from giving power to women would be greater than the men's.
Okay,
decisions.
So I will kind of bring in the idea that maybe there are some unpopular female figures.
I don't think all women are all lovely. Some are, but not all. And I think there are some lovely men and some horrible, awful men. And I think that people that end up in that position have to be a certain degree of nasty.
Okay.
I just don't think that it's possible to be that powerful and not have that ego or that narcissism.
So maybe touching on some things before about, if we get power, if we get wealth, does it change us as a person? Maximilian.
So my view on power, I do believe that in order for some people to gain power, some people have to lose power. And one thing I don't think people realize is that when someone when someone is in a position of power, especially if someone has grown up in that position of power, seeing other people getting that power, it does feel like they are losing something. And sometimes if there is that whole hierarchy control, then it feels like they have less control. So that's my stance on it. So that's my opinion on why people may not necessarily want to give up power. And I feel like all of us potentially has that kind of privilege in terms of the fact that we are living in the UK, in a Western country. And if we're comparing it to like some places in the world, it's like a question, how much is anyone willing to give up in order to give these people some opportunity?
That's a good point. So we're all living in the UK right now. What does giving up power look like if we were to do that? Laura, you wanted to bring in a point?
Yeah, I wanted to maybe specify and say I understand Mikey's point, and I do agree with you to some extent that there is enough for all the people to share equally. Let's call it the amount of power. It's like, I don't know, it's probably from like a TV show that I heard, this line about like female going against each other for, I don't know, in their career, and then there is enough of the sun to shine on both of them, so you don't have to put a shadow on the other female, you should support each other, whatever. I agree with that as well. But this is kind of a weird analogy to the power thing as well. But because we are in such an imbalance with the power, the understanding of losing the power that I talk about is kind of making space for the people that, whatever the people who were not in power to gain this power, and then it kind of, I'm thinking about this kind of analogy with like moving water, it has to go both ways and shake a little bit before it comes down completely. So if it's too much on one side, you have to go to the other way, and kind of like, I don't know where I'm going with it, but maybe you understand, maybe not. I just don't think it's as simple as I put it in the beginning. But definitely it's about making space for the others, which feels like losing the power, for some of the people. And this is why maybe they are so much against it, because they don't understand that they will eventually gain the power back. It's just not exactly on the same terms that they would like it. And also, I just want to add one more thing. I know I talk a lot because I couldn't find the words. The issue with men in power is that the way, and it's just analogy for other subjects, but I won't go there. The way they got the power, the way the world works. Let's try imagine how it would look like if that would be the opposite way. If the women would be in power, how the world would look like. It wouldn't look like looks right now. It would look completely different. Who knows how it would be. I'm
going to talk because there's two very good ideas there. So I think there's more like, if we kind of try and make the world a bit more equal, it might feel like some people like are a bit threatened for a short amount of time, but then it's better overall. But also you think that maybe if women had more been in power overall, maybe the world would be a different place. Do we agree? Do we disagree? Where are we going to go with this? We've got Margot. I'm going to go with you first.
It's what you were saying just made me think of something. I'm reading this book at the moment, and there's this idea that people have got this, what they call mimetic rivalry. Can never say that word, rivalry, which means that we are just kind of, we will always go and like we'll always be rivals to each other, and we don't fully know what our desires are, what we are about. We define that by just the opposition or like suggestions from the others. So almost, I don't know how it all started, but in a way it's kind of purporting that maybe we just, everything that we do, all of our desires are kind of like, you know, we'll just end each other basically if we were just left to our devices. But the good, like the thing about religion, for instance, because that's the kind of viewpoint this writer is kind of representing. He's saying that, you know, which is why it's a good idea to kind of follow what Jesus did, because Jesus as a human, his natural tendency was to mimic his Father, who's God, who actually shines the light, like shines the sunshine, you know, sends the sunshine on all the people equally. It doesn't matter if you're a complete asshole or whether you're like really, really good. God is just like so rid of any kind of desire, any kind of rivalry. That's actually quite a good thing to be like him. So yeah, just just like just be religious. Just do what God does.
Okay, so I think what I've got from that, and I think you've already got some hands up, is that humans are always in rivalry. Yeah. They're always competing. So we're kind of a bit lost, but we should do what Jesus does. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go for Selena first and Jared.
Okay. About religion, many could argue religion was created to control society, to subject society to rules, standards, and procedures, and to eradicate liberty, individuality, and other freedom concepts. Saying to follow Jesus would be to basically, if everyone followed someone, we would all be robotic. I mean, if everyone was kind, everyone was generous, would we really have the city of London we have now? Would we really have such a prosperous economy if everyone was one and the same? Like, you could also say about Jesus was nothing was written by the hand of God directly. Everything was created by humans saying, oh, I had a dream, this happened, or, you know, I had a vision, this happened. No one really knows what's real, what's in charge. And the only thing we can think of, the only thing we know for certain is that humans are rational and capable of creating their own society and having their own minds.
Brilliant. I mean, there are loads of things I want to unpack there. Jared, did you want to respond to some of them? We've got religion, we've got control.
Yep. I would like to say that.
Oh. There we go. We just got someone else coming to the Zoom room.
Oh,
another form of control, our digital control. But Jared, take it away.
Yeah. I would just like to say, if anything, I believe that religion is the most divisive thing ever created, and it's the person who created it, or the people who created it, are very, 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 very intelligent. And I believe that that is one of the reasons, that's one of the sort of causes of such disparities in wealth, in education, in health, and everything like that. Because let's be honest, there's been so many corrupted countries that's been introduced to Christianity. For example, like loads of countries in West Africa have been introduced to Christianity after they were invaded, and ever since after then, like their economy relatively to the world has just been depleting. So I think religion is a humbling thing, which is built to pacify the mass, and the minorities who wouldn't even follow the scriptures would do as they please to humble the mass, to stop them from uprising. That's my belief.
Okay, so we've got religions come up as a theme. We're talking about whether it allows people to be more generous. Does it mean that you control people? Jenny, you want to say something, and then I'll go to Mikey. Also, hello to Craig, who's joined us online. Hello, Craig. Jenny.
I also think another point I have is, if you're following Jesus and what he's like said and written and whatever, aren't you following something that's been lost in translation purely because it was written so long ago? Our language has changed, our like concept of morals and the concepts of even like simple lines has changed. So aren't you just following your own interpretation rather than like how he per se would have intended for it to be used? Therefore, at the end of the day, you're just using your morals, and indirectly you could potentially link it back to following Jesus, but you're not really, because it's lost in translation, because English isn't the same anymore. So how can you be using something that was written like that far back in history.
Okay, brilliant. So a point from Jenny that even if you do sort of follow religious teachings, you're always going to kind of be filtering it through yourself and your own interests and understandings of the world. Mikey.
I mean, I think that's one of the issues with religion is if it's written in a book, it's hard for it to update itself. And you've got with so many new technologies which change our, things like contraception, IVF, all sorts of different ways to cure the sick. We don't live in the same world that Jesus lived in 2,000 years ago. So, but the books themselves can't update. That wasn't the point I was going to make at all. I was more talking about, is that just a story we're told that we're all in competition with each other? Are we really in competition with each other? That's going back to your point. I don't think we are. I think we actually, you could just as easily see that we're all working together to actually achieve something.
So we've got religious control. We've got maybe religion was written for a different world. Are we in competition with each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think your point was that it had been translated and changed, but there are texts, religious and non-religious texts, that haven't changed. So the Old Testament hasn't changed. It's in the same scripture, essentially. The Quran has not changed. It's in the same language. So, and it can be interpreted, even though it's in one language, it can be interpreted in multiple ways. Just was it yesterday, day before, all those children were killed in the US, and that is largely based on an interpretation of a very brief little section of, in terms of an amendment to their constitution, which now has been interpreted as you can have as many guns as you want, and it's all good. They're discussing whether or not you can have a gun if you're mentally, upset, whatever. It's difficult because, if everybody's entitled to a gun, you should be entitled to a gun if you're crazy or not, an abusive person or not. I mean, that is what the law says. And it's again, it's all open to interpretation. And you can interpret, laws, rules differently at different times in the world. It's just how the history has changed, people have changed, and you interpret things differently.
Okay, so Akbar's saying, in some ways, any kind of thing written down, anything created by humans is open to interpretation. Timna, did you want to just leave us with a final? She's just disappeared as I found her. She had a look of her final thought. She's written it on the screen instead. The mosquitoes are eating her. She says that her final thoughts are, you're all beautiful, and if you see shit, you will harvest shit. Okay. We'll maybe put that out to the table. Now I'm going to go to our virtual audience now. Paul, did you have a thought you wanted to put out there?
Okay. Yeah, because what it is, it's very interesting how religion seems to be the conversation when philosophy is the thing that people don't often talk about. And it tends to be quite contentious philosophy. There was a philosopher who was told he had to kill himself because he was upsetting everyone. My favorite philosopher used to live in a barrel on the street. It's very interesting. It may be more about aspects of faith.
What do you think those philosophers can teach us around the table, or why do you think those philosophers are maybe better to bring up than religion, for example?
Oh, right. Well, what happens is that a philosopher is interpreting a worldview, and is interpreting a worldview, and whereas a religion is actually giving you one.
All right. Okay.
So there's the difference. It's an individual standpoint, and you can take all sorts of things about all aspects of life and humanity, right? Because we've got mammalian brains, we tend to actually fall in line with others.
Okay, so we maybe already tend to fall in line with others, whether we're following philosophy, religion. We're Jenny and then Margot.
I want to go back to the previous point where you were like, oh, the writing hasn't changed in like the Quran and stuff. But just because the writing hasn't changed and the words on the paper haven't changed, the connotations of the words have changed. And I think that's why you can't link back to the way you're living based on something where like the meaning of the words have changed significantly. And then going back to the point which he mentioned, he was talking about, do we really need to be more powerful than each other and stuff? And I think, yes, you do, purely because the way species have evolved to become who they are is because of survival of the fittest. At the end of the day, the species that survive are the ones who are the fittest, are the ones that can like fight and the strongest. And therefore, you will always have like a hierarchy of power or like of literally anything, because you can't survive if you aren't the best species or like the best version of that species.
Okay, so Jane's saying maybe actually that kind of power to compete, it's a bit of evolutionary, like it's inevitable.
I can't remember where I heard it. It may have been Talkaoke, considering how broadly we go with subjects, but apparently ants, they look after their weaker ants, sorry, not aunts.
They might be their aunts.
Yeah, they could be related. Absolutely, they could. But no, they apparently they work together, and they actually do support the kind of the weak ants. But my so that was surprising for me to hear. But the other thing about the scriptures and stuff, I mean, like I think people do manipulate the words, and I think even if when you look at the gospel, I think by the time Saint John wrote the gospel, the tone of it is like quite anti-Semitic. But the point about it is not to kind of argue about who's like. I think religion is actually more linked to philosophy, which is what you said, Paul, and I completely agree with that. And I think we just don't make time to explore that. And like you said, the religion gives you like ready answers, and I think it's good to kind of do the thinking and even kind of examine the things that we think that we definitely agree or disagree with. It's good to go back and go over our biases. That's it.
Okay, brilliant. I mean, loads of things there. I'm going to go to Mikey, then Jared.
Yeah, just on the philosophical thing, I think it can help with things like defining happiness, because we've been talking a lot about happiness, but it's not a very well-defined thing. What is happiness? It's like what makes me happy today doesn't bother me tomorrow, and am I even really struggling? I don't feel in my life, and I'm probably, apart from Akbar, the oldest person here, I'm not actually striving for happiness. I'm striving for something else. Happiness is not that relevant, actually, in the end.
Okay, brilliant. So are we striving for happiness? Are we not? Maximilian, are you off? Can we get a final thought from you?
It has been lovely. It's very interesting listening to all these discussions and all these different interpretations.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Maximilian. You've got a clap, a round of applause, both IRL and on the Mo6. I told them to. Do we all fall in line? Jared.
Yeah, sorry. I was about to mention, like how as a species, about how the strongest often survive, like that, and that's Charles Darwin's philosophy. So yeah, another philosophical thing, but that's true. But the thing is, I don't get why people are so surprised that in our human species we have such disparity, we have such arguments and stuff like that. Because technically, if you think of it, in terms of the human genome, we're actually the last species left that survived. We had Homo habilis, we had Homo neanderthals, we had all these other different human species. But why did Homo sapiens, early Homo sapiens, survive? Because of our competitive behavior, because of our advanced communications, because of our advanced strength and stuff like that. So why are people surprised just because it happens in one species? It's always going to be the survival of the fittest, survival of the most adaptable. It's always been like that, and it will never change.
Okay, so Jared's saying we shouldn't really be surprised, because that's how we became humans in the first place. And Gonzo, you look like you might have a final thought.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, starting with public transport, going to Queen, and now to religion, and to discussions of wealth. Did you manage to talk about mental health? Just a thought. All right, I'll leave you with that.
There we go.
Bye.
Thank you, Gonzo. Leaving us on maybe a sinister note. I don't know. Laura, you.
Mental health is us. Is us. We provide that. We engineering mental health. We engineering. We set up the environment for people to be okay. Just okay.
I missed it a bit because the wind was blowing. Are we ignoring mental health, or are we enjoying mental health?
it's not ignoring. Basically, mental health is us as a community, and basically because basically the global village kind of things is like basically we are happier if people next to us are happy. So basically, if people are next to us are in conflict, we are in conflict. So peace, there is a price to peace, something like that.
I like it. So David's saying kind of like mental health, good mental health, it's kind of a community responsibility. Laura, you had a point that you wanted to say as well.
I did have a point about what was said earlier about us as humans being the species that survived, and how that supports what Margot said about us humans being rivals between each other. I don't know how you say it, but also about Darwin. Actually, I'm reading a very interesting book about female animals in the kingdom of animals and everything. And actually, there's a lot of bullshit that Darwin said, and it's actually very interesting. I'm not gonna get into details, but actually, it kind of relates again to just a female creature, and how men made us think that females are the weaker ones, or less aggressive ones, or less sexually active ones than male species. And that's actually really interesting how the whole perception, the narrative got changed by scientists who just couldn't stand the thought of females being the the main core of the animal kingdom, actually.
Okay, I like it. Pete, you've got something you want to add to that as well?
It's very similar. Like it's the same with men. It's the same thing with like sexism. Men want to be in control because they're not in control. Like women the reason men do the things they do, like want wealth, want anything in the world, is because they want to have sex with a woman. That's why people do things. That's why people go to work every day.
Okay, I like. No, you've got some other hands. Okay, are you very quickly? I need to go to Jared though afterwards.
No, because that's actually very interesting what you say about men just wanting to have sex with female. In that book, there is like it's obviously exaggeration, but like in terms of like the instinct, male and female instinct in the animal kingdom, the difference is that the male primal instinct is to extend the line of like have children, while the main instinct of a female will be to survive, so to eat. Also because if she's pregnant, she needs to sustain herself, but like it's kind of an interesting balance that
Can we learn anything from this? Are we at risk of putting our own thoughts on these kind of patterns? I don't know.
I disagree with the fact that men's sort of men's priorities to extend the family is different from women's priorities. I think naturally both male and female sexes, they want to extend their lineage. Even more so in the case of females, because naturally in the animal kingdom, it's the females that are more aggressive. It's the lionesses that are more aggressive, that are more protective around the cubs. And one other statement is that in the society we're living in, unpopular opinion, I believe that if women's sort of power and stuff like that, and rights and everything was exactly equal to men's, then technically women would be advantaged, because of the fact that men have to go through daily, they have to go through a lot more physical demanding tasks. They built society for what it is today. Like men's suicide rates is higher than women's. And men's depression is higher than women's. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay, so no, I think that's a good one to bring to the table. So Jared's kind of pointing out there. Guys, come and grab a seat. We've been talking about.
Hello.
You've got a cat with you. Well, we've just been talking about whether we can learn from animals, whether they've got more of an evolutionary instinct. Come and grab a seat. And we've got Mikey who wants to have a thought on that.
I think what Laura's talking about is it's a biological reductionism. I think it's, you know, obviously Charles Darwin came up with a theory of evolution, and that was a good theory. It works, and the rest of it. But I think there's a lot, you know, just as they were projecting a lot of their views about women in the Victorian era, I think we're also projecting a lot of our views about kind of competitiveness or about, you know, how capitalism works onto nature, because whatever is natural just seems to be right. And I think there's a, you know, whether it's women or men, I don't think that our instincts are so biologically determined that we must reproduce. That's what, you know, because I bet Pete hasn't reproduced yet, although he's probably done some practicing. But, you know, it's like we've got a bit more to our game than just wanting to reproduce, is basically what I'm saying.
So, yeah, are we at risk of biological reductionism if we kind of think of ourselves as animals? We look to the animal kingdom. Paul online, I'm going to go to you next. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, I have. Hello. Yeah, that is a valid point. I think what it is as well that it was survival of the fittest, which was about adaptability as much as anything, and about how creatures can actually change to suit their environments. I think what it was, Darwin stopped believing in God when he came across this wasp that stung its prey and it paralyzed it. It didn't kill it. And then it would drag it into the hole and then lay eggs in it. And so it's still living. It's possibly the most horrific thing, right? It's a bit like Alien. So, I mean, what happens is that the nature is really crueler than we think sometimes. But what happens is we also have our own, like I say, we're ultimately mammalian in approach. But every now and again, there's these people who, I mean, they're a bit like that reptile that David, what do you call it, talks about. You know, these
David
people.
Icke.
Sorry, who?
Is it David Icke? I just heard
Yeah,
that.
him. Yeah, I try not to mention his name too much. Bad things happen. So what happens is that you get this thing, because that's our old brain, actually. We've got various layers of a brain. The old brain is that horrible reptilian one that just does stuff because it wants to. And I think what happens is that those are the psychopathic tendencies for those people who rise to the top.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good one to bring up there. So you're sort of kind of saying that maybe people who rise to the top are more psychopathic.
Not always,
reptilian.
but can be quite prone to it. Definitely.
We've got Jared's point from earlier about like if people were equal, you know, would something like men's mental health become more of a fall? Would women have more of an advantage than men in society as it is? Akbar, you've also
Can I have a leaving message? I'm going now.
Oh yes, please tell us your final. Sorry,
I'm going to have a word about this equality thing because I think it's really valuable. And what happens is that I think it's our differences that always should be the thing we're looking at. We can't always have any real form of equality. Even in relationships, there's always a stronger partner. So what happens is that I think if you want to talk about if women are greater than men, I think manhood in general, if you take away his ability to look after his children or to actually go and do things, then there's a problem. And that's what Jared was mentioning about suicide rates. It's also about the fact that women tend to be more emotionally developed at a younger age and can communicate a bit better. And guess what? We're in an age of communication. So
Brilliant.
soft skills.
Thank you, Paul. I think that was a really good final thought to leave us on. Lots of things
Thank
to
you.
discuss.
See you, David.
You've got the mic. We've got a new face at the table. What's your name? User. User. Welcome. Akbar.
I'm quite interested in this evolution and wealth. Clearly, you would think survival of the fittest. The wealthy family should survive. Why are there so many poor people?
Can anyone answer that?
We need them, obviously, as wealthy people. We need the poor.
But we've got a few new people on the table, and so we're just going to do a quick round of names, and then we're going to go over here. So, name first.
It's Akbel.
Charpal.
Jared.
Jenny. Selena. Laura.
Eat.
Margot.
Josa.
Josa?
Yeah.
Josa. Sorry.
Mikey.
Brilliant. We're going to go over here. Have you got any responses?
Oh, it's about mental health. Sorry, I'm a bit shy. I don't know. Earlier I heard like it's about the community that you're in. I don't think so, because like even though you're in a healthy community, you can still feel down. Your mental health, you still don't know, like you can still be saddened by, and I mean they can influence you that you can be happy, but that doesn't mean that your mental health is improving. Sometimes it can also mean it can also be failing, although you are surrounded by a healthy and happy community.
Brilliant. I think that's a great point. Thank you so much. So yeah, that someone earlier brought up the idea of like mental health. It's about, you know, healthy mental health, good positive mental health. It's about the community you're in as well. We've got quite a few thoughts from that as well. I'm going to Selena first.
Okay. To answer his question, he just went now. I would say capitalism, and also about how going to ignore it. About how there's more poor people in society. There's more people in society because of Marxism, because of a bourgeoisie and proletariat divide, whereby we as proletariats, we as working class, are being subjected to things done by the wealthy people, such as, a good example is keeping up with the Joneses. We always have to keep with the latest trends, the latest things, and so forth. I think that's really key to understanding why working class stay working class, why working class reproduce to try and better their children and so forth. So I feel like we need to get out of that mindset as a person anyway, and yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. No, that's a great point. So we're thinking about, it's actually sort of about the political structures we make, and they're designed to keep people poor. Laura?
I want to go back a little bit to what Jared said about mental health and men suffering from mental health. I'm not exactly sure on the numbers, like what's the yeah, I'm not sure about the numbers, but the thing is, I recently learned that with mental health, your hormones have a very big impact on how your body and mind works, and very often mental health issues can be caused because they're hormonal imbalance. And the thing is, with women, it's much easier to find out that there is a hormonal imbalance because they just have issues with their periods. But men don't get that. So if they actually don't go and check their hormones, they will never know they have an imbalance, and that might be the reason or one of the reasons for their mental health issues. But then, like, no one talks about men going and doing a blood test to check their hormones.
So we were sort of talking about earlier about mental health, and Lara was pointing out that actually maybe there are some biological reasons for bad male mental health, and maybe they're kind of overlooked. So sort of like there's a blind side in medicine. I'm going to go to Mikey first, then we've got Craig has got a hand up as well.
Well, we should bring in Craig, because he hasn't said anything yet.
Yeah, Craig, it's all right. You can come in now. Hello.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, though.
No, Mikey, you go first. I want to hear what you're going to say.
No, I would just I just think we've finally come around to mental health, but I would like to talk about emotional well-being, which is not quite the same as mental health, but I think it's actually more relevant to this conversation, because I think we want to live in a world where people have better emotional well-being. And I think the tragedy that happened a couple of days ago in Texas is down to mental health or poor emotional well-being. And that should be what we're striving for. It's easier to achieve better emotional well-being for people than equality of wealth or equality of power. Emotional well-being is just like you're emotionally stable, you can understand your emotions, you can actually, it's not like being completely flat emotionally, but actually riding with that and feeling like you're in control of your emotions, and maybe happiness, although I poo-pooed the word happiness earlier on, but that sense of whatever that is, contentment, excitement, your happiness is different things at different times of the day.
Brilliant. Having space to express emotions. I'm going to go to Craig online. So
I was just on the mental health front. I was thinking, do people think that mental health comes like internally, let's say like a chemical imbalance, or do people feel that it's an external thing that, we see so much on Instagram of people living these amazing lives. We see like all these tragedies on the news, and like that puts a difficult feeling inside us and we develop mental health through that, or do we think that it's purely through a chemical imbalance?
Jenny, you were shaking your head very early on there.
I think it's okay as a part of it, a very tiny part of it is internal. But I think, especially for young people, the majority causes of mental health problems and like a decline in mental health is due to society, and it's due to like social media. And I also think it's due to schooling, purely because of the amount of stress they put on like exams and stuff. But whenever they talk about like topics like mental health, it's so stigmatized and it's so focused on like such a, like it's seen as so irrelevant despite like the extent to which it impacts youth. And because of that, it becomes like a bigger issue. And then someone was talking about how does mental health impact like how our society is, because it dictates like the decisions you make. And it does. I personally think that because no one's focusing on mental health, for example, like the rich are focusing on getting wealthier and not getting emotional support and well-being, that's what's causing so much of like the divisions we have in society, because you can't reach out for mental health due to the fact that it's not talked about, or it's seen as such a taboo to talk about.
Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, there's this idea that it's taboo, that you can't talk about it. Jared?
I believe that mental health, okay, let's leave aside like genetic conditions that may influence your mental health, like bipolar and stuff like that. In terms of like a neurotypical brain, I think mental health is purely nurture and not nature, in that it's purely based on the influences you've seen and the surrounding environment to feel in a way that you possibly want to end your life, because depression is not a natural feeling at all. It's not listed as one of the natural emotions you go through. It's such a complex sort of man-made artificial sort of emotion of constant like invisibility, rejection and stuff like that, which are kind of unnatural things in nature. In nature, you're never invisible in nature. Like you're always seen in some sort of way. Even if you're a small insect, you're seen by possible, predators or prey. So nothing's never invisible by nature, but society can make people feel invisible.
Okay, brilliant. So like they're kind of like our kind of man-made structure maybe kind of makes people feel more isolated than they ought to be. Margot?
I thought that that point about depression that you just made was really articulate, and I just really appreciate it. I wonder about the kind of mental health and what did Mikey call him? Emotional well-being, because in a way, if we live in a society of people that we disagree with, that like they piss us off because they do things differently and whatever, then I guess that's going to impact our mental health. So in a way, I'm just kind of coming around to thinking that, well, perhaps it's actually fine that people live in their silos. They surround themselves in their, bubbles of friends and people who are like them. If you're rich, you're rich. If you're poor, you're poor. Just kind of do your thing. And it's actually fine, because that's better for your mental health. Because the minute you start challenging, then that takes up so much of your, energy. Then it's like, is it even worth it? So are we living our lives to challenge and to change, or are we living our lives for happiness?
Okay, so do we want to challenge and change ourselves? Are we just trying to be happy? Craig, I'm going to go to you online. You might need to unmute yourself again.
I'm sorry, I'll press that button. So people are feeling like mental health is an external thing that's caused through social media or the societies that we live in. How do people feel that the way that traditionally we are dealing with mental health through like medication and prescription, instead of taking more like talk therapies?
Okay, so yeah, how do people feel about how we treat mental health? We go Laura and then Jenny.
I had a point from your first question, but I can actually relate to the second one as well. So the first thing I wanted to say that apparently with like the technology and the civilization going so fast, we are actually, as humans, we didn't evolve as fast as our technology and our culture and not culture, the civilization. So we are not emotionally prepared to deal with so many how you call it, stimulants.
Okay.
Yes. So that's why our mental health really suffers from it. And the second thing about the medication, I think it's a way to help you go through your, depending on the mental issue, really. But I believe that medication can really make progress with making your mental health healthier, only with a therapy, because it's kind of a, it's not the solution, it's only a kind of a something to help you lift you up while you do the work through the therapy, if that's necessary even.
Great. Okay, so we had two things there. So maybe Laura's bringing up, like, maybe we're like having a bit of a mental health crisis now because the society we live in, there's just so much stuff, there's so much stimuli. And then also you're pro medication for mental health, but only along with therapy, only with more like talking things. So I did say, Jenny, that I'll go to you next.
I think you basically said my point, because I was going to talk about the fact that firstly, medication has like adverse effects, in the sense it can cause like other disorders to escalate from the one that you're trying to solve. And also I think it's not dealing with the root cause of the issues, it's kind of just like covering it up, or like putting sand over like the dirt, purely because society isn't willing to invest the money that they need to for mental health. They're not willing to realize that it's an issue at the stage that it's currently at.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. And then was it Selena or Jared? Did one of you have a point? Yeah?
No, you can go.
Oh, there we go.
What I was going to say.
Hey, if you got them, we'll go to you, Selena.
I was going to say, mental health isn't really that important in society. People don't really value how much mental health can actually affect somebody. I feel like a lot of the time we have like a lot of labeling, like, oh, you have depression or you have anxiety, but people don't really know the true meaning of those words and how it really affects individual as a person. And also the fact that mental health, it kind of basically, Thatcherites, conservatives, they do not like mental health. They do not see it. They do not value it at all. And I feel like that this society is kind of based around that. And I feel like that's why we have such high suicide rates in men. That's why a lot of females are going through stuff. Lots of housewife females, they're literally going through a lot of mental health crises, and nothing's being done about it as well. So yeah.
So we're going through a lot of mental health. We're not a lot's been done about it.
I kind of agree with that, because like some parents usually ignore their children, like even though the children's sad, like they just ignore the fact, oh, that child is just sad. Doesn't mean that anything deep can have, and it doesn't have a deep meaning. Also, like even if it's too late, that the parents or everyone else just go to therapy and take medication. Well, in the honest fact that medication is kind of bad, like all you need is someone to talk to and someone to open about. But also some people that has trust issues needs to that person shouldn't share that to anyone. So they cannot go to therapy because if they don't trust that person, because some reports to their parents, let's say a children talks to someone like a therapist, and the therapist will report to the parents, will make the child even lose their trust to that.
Oh, brilliant. So yeah, it's like this big, there's a lot of relationships of trust when you talk about mental health. So between the therapist, between the parents, between yourself.
Can I have a quick word? Yes.
I
Long live Talkaoke. Talkaoke. I have to go. So basically, I'm wishing you very nice evenings, and basically all the best, and basically looking forward to the 10th of July. At the Wish Mix.
Online. Thank you.
Nice one.
And you know what, David, you've got brilliant timing, because we're actually getting to the point in the night where we are coming to final thoughts. So if you haven't been to Talkaoke before, we're just going to go around the table and bring your final thoughts about the conversation that we've had so far. Maybe you want to throw in a really last minute new topic. It's really up to you, just your final thoughts on everything that's happened this evening. So go first thought and final thought over here. That would be brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My first day here. I'm loving it. Thank you very much for having me, guys. Oh, I love the applause. Thank you. And then I must say about the mental health. It's a huge benefit if we enjoy the outdoors and then exercise. and just talk to friends. And go out as often as you can. Don't stay indoors and watching TV, because the more you go outside, even your own, you feel so much better, and then you see people, you see dog walkers, you have a chat with someone you never met before, and who knows, you even make a friendship, you know better your neighborhood, your people that live around of you. And I'm a big believer that the outdoors is the best way for you to, one of the best ways for you to get better with your mental health.
Brilliant, a fantastic bit of practical advice for you there. Thinking about steps that we can all, our mental health and mental well-being. Thinking about being outdoors and being connected to the community. Mikey, final thoughts.
Totally agree with what Dils was saying about being outdoors and connecting with people. But I also want to add the question of creativity, because I think creativity is a huge boost to mental health. And if you're feeling down, if I'm feeling down, I will try to make something or draw something. And that's for me as a visual artist, that's really, really useful. But I think if people connect with their creativity, then they not only find a route to express possible negative feelings, but actually in making something really feel better. So I think it's a really important vehicle for dealing with mental health issues.
Fantastic. I'm going to go over here. Charlie, we're going to go to you for your final thought. I mean, you missed a little bit of a section about mental health, but anything that you want to say about the conversation that we've had all evening?
I've very much enjoyed being here, as I always do. That's what.
What's the statement that stood out to you?
I mean, I sort of think I'm going to sort of gently withdraw.
Gently withdraw. That's okay. That's also allowed. There you got that. You got double sounds from Mikey. I'm actually going to go to online. Craig, have you got a final thought to give us?
I think, if we gather together and we discuss our thoughts, that we can solve any problem.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Craig. If we gather together, we can solve any problem. Do you guys agree? What do you want to leave us with our final thought?
It was fun being here, meeting random people, and I'm really glad that we get to talk about lots of topics, although I don't know politics. But mental health, it was nice for me because I usually joke it around, but taking it serious this time really helped. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And then you've got an IRL and an electronic round of applause.
Well, my sort of end message is talk is always talk. It never really equates to action. So invisibility in terms of the people who do a lot for society that don't really necessarily have loud voices, a lot more people need to mention them and need to appreciate them. Yeah.
Brilliant. So a bit of a call to action there. I like it. Talk is just talk. How are you going to back it up?
Likewise, feeding off that point, I think talking isn't the most important factor. It's what you do after. Like, you can have one of the most deepest conversations, but if you don't take action after the conversation, it's kind of become insignificant. So yeah.
Brilliant. So we've got definitely a firm call to action there. We've got a call to action there as well.
Okay.
Dropping things.
I just wanted to say it was wonderful being here. As the youngest here, a lot of the times, my words are invalued and so forth. So it's really lovely speaking up about that. And also, of course, by talking about it, we're raising the issue, we're raising awareness, and hopefully actions can come out of it as well. So
brilliant. Thank you very much. So yeah, we valued your contributions. It was brilliant to have you guys all here. Laura, we're going to have your final thought.
Is that my final thought?
Yeah.
My final thought is that it was great hearing all of your opinions, and I'm glad that we can disagree about things and still have a conversation and actually learn new things one from the other.
Fantastic. And we'll go straight on to, you've got, again, another nice round of applause, Pete.
was gonna say about like mental health. I think that like everything you see on social media isn't people's real lives. You're only seeing the parts they want you to see, the good parts. So like go for a walk, leave your phone at home. I don't do it, but like I think it'd be good. Like if people do, like maybe accidentally on purpose forget to take your phone on a walk.
Brilliant. I like a bit of advice you don't follow, but one for the table. Thank you, Pete. And Margot, final thought. You're actually our final thought. So,
Am I a final?
You've got
Okay, I better say
spotlight on
something
you.
deep. No, but I just wanted to say thank you for tonight. I think it's been just extremely great to be here because I was really tired this morning and I thought, oh my God, like, am I even going to last this long? But I just feel completely stimulated, and I think I'm also a little bit inspired to, you know, to go and take action. And I really appreciated what everybody had to contribute. And I think one of my latest methods to discover how to kind of like calm myself down and just kind of be creative is like I took up visual art, and it's really making me see and process things in different ways. So I would definitely recommend doing visual arts or something with your hands. For a better world and your well-being.
Thank you, Margot. So we've had quite a practical set of final thoughts, and that will kind of lead us to the end of Talkaoke.
Let's have a huge round of applause for Ebby in the middle. Fantastic job. And we're just going to go.
You made my job very easy.
Mm.
We're here every last Thursday of the month. We're also on other events in the world on the peoplespeak.org.uk, so come and find us there.
Next event is is next Tuesday, 31st of May. We're going to be in Hackney, Pembury Community Centre, opposite Pembury Tavern. And then on the 1st of June, we're going to be in the Isle of Dogs at St Andrew's Community Centre. So there's two, and they're both public gigs. You're welcome to come to that. And then the last Thursday of every month right here. And we're going to be in Hackney Wick on the 15th and 22nd of June as well, outside of the station. So
if you
watch
enjoyed
that one.
this,
Yeah.
there are lots of opportunities to come again. But I think that the last thing for me to say is thank you so much for being such a brilliant Talkaoke table, and play the outro music, right? There we go. What's new outro music? Thank you, everyone. Lovely.